we go. How's this? Yes. There we are. Are we there? I think so. Hello. So, yeah. I made a little overlay to just show who's here in case other people want to join. So it's a bit more obvious who's talking and stuff. Maybe a little bit. I don't know.
So
But
we're
here
on
we are.
Twitch, right?
Hmm?
Okay.
Yeah. But obviously, if you're here, it's better that you listen to me in here.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. Yeah. All right. So, how are you? Feeling pumped?
Yeah. Let's get right on to
Let's attack
the
this, I
stuff.
guess.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you want to start with?
Let's start with what was promised last time,
What was promised last time?
which was a very deep analysis of a popular theory.
Okay. Yeah.
And you told me that there were things
Mm-hmm.
that weren't making much sense prior and then made more sense after.
Yeah. Yeah, there were like bits and pieces here and there. I'm not saying that it necessarily revolutionizes things. Oh, thank you, Bea. It's just the more I thought of it, the more things fell a little bit into place for me. I guess a few things felt like a bit up in the air in terms of how they connect with everything, and this idea pulls them together much tighter.
Okay.
But I don't have like as deep as of an analysis as you probably have, so I could reserve my view on things for the latter part of this conversation, and you can, have your space to elaborate as much as you want on your side of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would still like to know, even if not how it changed your perception, but what were the things that you were unsure about? Because you were unsure about these things even before considering the theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were
Yeah.
some things in the novel that you were unclear about. What were those things?
Well, I was kind of racking my brains to figure out how I should land on interpreting the final scene with the battler and bad teacher, quote unquote, or not, in the boat,
In the
and
boat, okay.
and what them sinking and him still not letting go of her meant. If it was only metaphorical, or if it had a parallel in the real world, or what the outcome of that would be. And of course, that was before we saw the aftermath of Battler actually surviving.
Yeah.
And I was like, is he fully dead? Did he not? Did she? Okay. I didn't really, I wasn't really sure where I would land there. But then that we saw the whole, how things actually played out in terms of Battler surviving, I couldn't really imagine, but I mean, this might be also an issue that I have with other parts of the story that in the end turned out to be that way, and I had to accept them to be that way. But I couldn't really imagine how Battler could be hurt and still take himself to shore by himself,
Right.
then get himself into an accident. It just felt like it couldn't have been the result of only one person being there, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Right, so that was the thing, like how did he save himself if he was also hurt, if, like, I don't know, a little
Okay.
bit of how I don't know, how did that play out, how did he land on land and then survive. But also I had like a big question about that scene that is presented to be as the first scene that Ikuko saves Battler.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt that there was something out of place And now that I had, and no, not now, but after I got the hint that it could, this theory could be true, I kind of landed on this spot of like, that maybe wasn't their first time meeting. It maybe was something else. But yeah, okay.
Okay.
And overall,
So
just Ikuko's, she, ever since she was introduced, she felt like this towering presence above everything. Somehow, sometimes even above Beatrice in terms of knowledge of the story and how everything plays out and so on. And I just kept wondering why is this random person who
yeah,
technically has like no involvement with the Ushiromiyas or the story suddenly becomes so fundamental and pivotal in everything. And then it would make more
think
sense.
that I think that is the most appealing aspect
Yeah,
because it is uh or on the surface, right? It is a new character appearing quite late into the story, having a huge impact on it, right?
yeah,
So it's like, okay, maybe it's not a new character, and a lot of people find that more satisfying.
in a way,
But
yeah.
okay,
Yeah, so these were the main
um,
points, I guess. Yeah.
yeah, let's agree on the surface of what is presented, which is what I believe is the case. Uh, but I will present it as the surface level.
Sure.
Um, on the boat, um, on the surface, what happens is that um, Beatrice uses uh, a gold ingot to drown herself,
Mm-hmm.
and Butler rushes in to save her, right?
Yep.
And then um, there's actually a split in two battlers in that scene. One that rises back up to the surface, and one that continues on with her down, right?
I guess we could see it that way, yeah.
I think it's pretty explicitly written this way. There's a disconnect.
Yeah, because there's I couldn't understand what it meant that like so there's this moment that he lets go, but then he comes back and holds on to her and like
Right,
premises never let
right.
go, and kind of like everything dies. There,
Right.
everything dies and is buried in the cat box forever or something like that.
What I think this is the physical one rising back up to the surface to then survive,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one joining Beatrice in a more spiritual way. The
Right.
manga actually has more to this
Mm-hmm.
if you are interested.
I will read it.
Okay. You will see what it does about
Mm-hmm.
this.
Okay.
Um, okay. So yeah, that's what I think happens. So I think in that scene we do see him go back up. Then how did he get to shore? Well, uh, you have to just think that that's what happened.
Yeah, no.
like like other things that got to shore, the bottles, you have to think that he eventually was drowning and unconsciously washed up,
Yeah, but then why wasn't he just washed up on the shore?
because presumably at some point I guess he woke up and walked and weirdly got run over.
And yeah, poor
So
Battler. Like he can catch a break.
he can't. The thing is that you we'll discuss this later, like you said, but I don't think any perspective actually makes this make any more sense. But we'll see how you
I
understand.
think it maybe
Okay.
it's also up to personal taste when it comes to filling in gaps like this.
Yeah.
And it's not
Because
unlike other things in the novel, so it's not really that out of place.
true.
Yeah.
Even his mental condition that he develops is not really a real thing, as far as I know. So
Yeah, that's fine.
you just have to accept
Yeah,
that
yeah.
this is what the fictional character. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, I had a
Uh,
prior experience with weird memory loss loops in another
right.
novel.
Oh yeah,
So yeah,
They love it in their VNs. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm okay with that.
Uh, as for him being saved on the surface, I think it's exactly how it is. He's somehow on some road in that island,
Mm.
gets almost or a bit ran over by this random person that lives there. And this person takes him in and happens to be interested in writing, and then gain, gains an interest in the incident. I think that's all exactly how it's presented.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the theory? The theory is that Ikuko is uh Yasu because of the Y, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um there's a lot of logistical questions about this, and not everyone has the same perspective on this. So what's your perspective on how this could be?
Mm. Logistical from which point of view?
Okay,
From
let's start with this person has a whole life in this island,
mm-hmm.
a whole house and
Mm-hmm.
servants and family name. And she says she has family, right? She explains a little
She
bit of her
says
family
so, but
story. Yeah,
she just says so.
yeah.
Very
So what?
conveniently, she has broken ties with the family and is
Yes.
forced to live there alone. Hey,
Yeah.
Matsu.
So when was this set up?
Belle is also saying that I don't think the car accident thing is the first time that they meet and she takes care of him. I I guess I'm also a little bit pushed in this direction because of my previous experience with memory loop thing. Um, I think it would make sense that they both survived, right? That it wasn't just Battler who rose up to the surface. It was Yasu as well. Surely she couldn't have prepared this beforehand. I don't know. I'm leaning more in the direction that um, vehicular manslaughter. You hate to see. Oh god. Maybe that could be also it. But I can also see it as them surviving then, but Battler still being hurt by the whole drown. I don't know how drowning makes you lose your memory, but like, okay, we can work with that, right? We can suspend the disbelief a little bit there.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and Yasu helping him to shore and taking care of him. But him going into this weird loop of maybe recovering memories and that being painful to him because it is also described later on when in the meeting with Enjem just how much he struggled with it. He kept going into these loops of like trying to remember, but then they're becoming painful, throwing a fit, hurting himself. So that was the moment when to me it kind of clicked. Maybe that accident where she scoops him up um, of the street could have been an episode like that. Like maybe in the beginning, Yasu tried to help him regain his memories, but that was too potent, too hurtful. Maybe that spiraled into some sort of accident. That could be that scene. And after that, maybe seeing that it led to that, maybe she then takes this approach of, okay, I'm gonna pretend that this is like blank slate, this is where we start, and let it all just evolve slowly and guide him slowly over time and maybe seeing how things go and so on. So that would also explain a lot to me why this exploration of Battler's past happened like in a trickling way over time through the stories that they wrote, and that it wasn't something that was being pushed onto him, just allowed him to try to discover it in his own time. If that makes sense. I don't know if I put it right.
Yeah, sure. So So before they get into the boat, the alternate life is already all set up.
I don't know, maybe some parts of it could be. I'm not sure because there's definitely this hint that she managed to get some of the gold exchanged into money and has access to an account and stuff. So that could be an indication that at the very minimum something outside of the island was set up at some point. Maybe just minimally. And by the time this accident happens, it's been a while and they managed to set up all of the other things.
Yeah,
Like
I don't
car,
think it's a
house, and stuff like that.
I don't think it's a issue of means. I mean, I do think that the money is accounted for in the sense that the little that was converted, um, what part of it was in the card, and the other part was in the bank for the family of the survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically it. But I don't have an issue with the idea that she could have converted more of it and used it to
Yeah, I don't have issues with that either.
buy or build a mansion in an
Mm-hmm.
island and have the soul a separate life. My issue is more with the character of the person that would be because it's completely different from the perception that I have of what the character would do otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
because we're talking about someone that whose whole chain of actions relies on considering that uh, Rokkenjima is their entire world,
Mm-hmm.
and they can't move past any of the issues about it uh, because they just can't conceive of a different life. They can't conceive of different love interests, or they can't conceive of. They don't even stop working there as a servant when they get the money and title and all of that. Um, so at some point during their most uh, depressive times, they manage to secretly set up a secondary life. Apparently, with some plan to go to start living that life after the incident. Is that your perception that?
No, no,
Oh,
I
okay.
wouldn't go to the point of thinking that this was fully meticulously planned out. Maybe partially, and maybe some of the money was set up in a way that Yasu could access it, but not to the extent of the full life was planned. Right? So maybe there was something, like I said, and there was a period of time where things got figured out, I suppose, after they managed to. Everything okay? Mm. Secretly just ordered Genjin, he will do
Okay,
it.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
no
back.
worries, no
Go
worries.
on.
No worries, it happens. Yeah, so it was never at any point my perception that everything was fully set up. Maybe just partially and definitely some sort of financial means. Probably because otherwise I can't imagine how they could have gotten all of that out of nothing. But there is I forget exactly where it is and in which words it is said, but there is a part of Yasu which in very in I don't know subtle ways I guess resembles Kinzo. That there is a part of her that hopes there's some possibility for, let's say, happy ending, of like them figuring out someone figuring out the epitaph and stopping her initial
Yes.
plan, right? So maybe that part of her could have also planned, well, okay, just in case, maybe let's set something aside, you know?
No, I don't.
No,
I don't see it. No, I don't.
you don't see it. Mm. I think there's a lot of parts of her, um, them. I don't know. Is it okay to say her? It's such a
Yeah, yeah, of
feminine
course.
presence to me that
Yeah, of
it's
course, of
hard
course.
to, yeah. Yes, I couldn't conceive of becoming a mystery novel writer after spending a lot of time writing mystery novels. Ah,
Not
yeah.
really. I mean, it's unknown exactly what it looks like in the bottles,
Mm.
but yeah,
Yeah, we see Yasu's personality split in so many ways by all of the things that mm, built their life and put it on a certain course, and a lot of things were out of Yasu's control. And so I guess these split, I don't even want to call them split personalities because I feel like I'm putting a diagnostic and I don't want to do that. But all of these splinters of the same person are coming as a reaction to other things and like or the things that were done to them. But I want to believe there was something in there that also hoped for some way to overcome this, that there is a way to go past it. And even Battler says it in the boat, no? To make up for this, you just go on and live. So I
yes.
want to believe that there was at least one splinter of her that believed there could be a possibility. It's just it was really, really tiny and kind of like created this whole setup of like, if this roulette of fate ends up falling onto that tiny minuscule chance, then I will take it. I will leave everything behind and I will live it. I guess I don't remember exactly in which words this is said, but there is something said at some point when it's explained, and that's very
So
akin to Kinzo and like believing that miracles happen when you take this gamble when there's a very, very low chance of success. You know what I mean?
yes,
Yeah.
um, I have
So
a
I think
different
this
conception.
this was kind of
Go
like
on.
that.
Yeah, I have a different conception on how that concept is used by Yasu. But
Mm-hmm.
before that, I want to clarify if this is what you're saying. So initially, she takes the ingot because she wants to drown herself,
Mm.
and they get into the boat, and she has decided that this is what's going to happen after Battler is assured safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, then Battler has his speech about don't do that.
Yep.
Still, she does it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's only at the moment where he goes to grab her that, well, somehow the ingot isn't a factor or a factor anymore. So such that even she's the one with more presence of being after they wash up to help both of them get to some sort of safety. But it's at that moment that she decides, you know what? No, I am gonna live as that life I had set out. This is it.
Mm-hmm. But I think a fundamental piece of what you just said is that she wanted to do that as soon as she saw Battler safe. But if Battler jumped after her and didn't let
Mm-hmm.
go and got himself to the point he almost drowned, then
Okay.
couldn't that be the thing that pushes her towards the change of heart? Like, oh my god, he's gonna die with me. No, that was not the
I
point.
I, I can see that being impetus to somehow snap out of it at that moment.
Yeah.
But then I don't see how it carries over later.
Mm. Okay, I can see it.
Unless the idea is that Battler is so messed up now that he will never be safe alone.
If the feelings Yasu had towards Battler were true, and they were truly powerful, and Yasu really cared about Battler, I can't imagine doing anything else in that moment. But I have to also preface here, I'm coming at this with like my heart, not so much
Sure.
with all of the surface details and building everything neatly, perfectly together, right? It's just, this is what my heart would want. My heart would be very happy if this were the case. You know what I mean? So,
Yes. Well, somehow it's a very strange person. At the end, this being true, there's some quite bizarre things like
mm,
why why start dripping in the incident if the idea was to have Battler live this new life, like going on the internet to see what people are saying about it, and then writing about it. It seems weird. I don't see why this would be done. Why do you think that would be done?
because I think the whole point of it was to try to help Battler reconcile with his past self. I don't think it was at least that's how I perceive it. That, I mean, even the whole purpose of the novel and the games is like to make Battler remember, right?
Hmm.
First, it seemed on the surface that okay, Battler needed to forget, needed to remember that he forgot about the promise he had made 6 years prior. But then with this whole ending and things, then it becomes even bigger than that. It's about Battler having to remember who he is. Um, and I think that's what Ikuko set out to do slowly. And it makes sense that when this thing starts blowing up online, maybe at some point she decides this is a good thing to, stir things a bit more into that direction.
I think if it were me,
Mm.
I wouldn't start with that. uh,
But that's not starting with it. To me, that it felt like that was like a lot of years later.
in terms of um, bringing battler memories.
Hmm. But the moment maybe we're thinking about different things, or I reread that scene of which is sandwiched between Enja scenes, which was so confusing.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's that chapter about Ikuko finding Battler, the whole getting into mystery novels, and then later on the topic of the Rokkenjima accident. And
Yeah.
to me, it feels this is happening over the course of multiple years. And the biggest hint that this was much later was that she was reading this on a computer.
Okay,
So to
sure.
me, that
Yeah.
feels like it's towards the late 90s,
Yeah, yeah.
closer to the present day of Angel, let's say.
When I say start, I mean start the process.
Mm.
Because we don't see anything prior to that with Ikuko doing anything to jog his memory. That is separate from what someone would normally do, like ask what the name of the person is, right? Or how old they are, or whatever.
Mm.
That we see that in a very initial time, and then uh, I don't know if it makes sense to me that someone would go with this terrible event as the primary way to get someone to remember, especially since none of the information about that event that is coming through, either through the things that they write or the things that are being discussed online, are actually true.
Okay, but the things that Ikoko had been writing, to me, they felt like blatant references to the Rokenjima thing before that. And that Battler, like, stumbles into the manuscript and, like, oh, I read this last night and then I finished it and it feels great.
Oh,
And
really?
I love how you foreshadowed the ring thing in the beginning. And that reminded me, oh, there's a scene in the beginning, something with Kinzo throwing away a ring. And I know Bea made me remember that. And I don't remember why. I mean, I remember Bea pointing it out to me. It's like that is important, but in the end, I never really connected it to anything. um,
I don't have that conception of that.
and there was something about the island of something something in the story, and like it seemed that there were like references. It wasn't the actual thing. She was kind of writing
Yeah.
around the topic, and then eventually, also fueled by this thing online, moved to the topic of the actual incident, which again was a gradual process that, to me, at least from rereading the scene or the chapter, better said, uh, happened over the course of multiple years,
I see.
over a decade, I would
I
say.
don't, yeah.
I guess.
That's a very different conception from what I have. I think
Okay.
that she plainly was writing
Mm-hmm.
because that's what that character likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
Ikuko likes to write, which is
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing as Yasu. Like this isn't actually a similarity. It's very different in the way that it's portrayed. Like Ikuko likes to write for the sake of it.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, she was writing like mystery stuff and about islands, I guess, because that's where she lives, right? And there's a ring in it. Yeah, that might be like some sort of nod to the ring,
Mm-hmm.
but the ring is actually not very important in the end in Umineko.
Yeah,
So
that's why I'm like, I know that Bev told me to remember that scene, and I remember it to this day, but I'm not sure I can connect it to anything in particular.
right. So yeah, if it was, I think if it was to be, and by the way, this isn't an essential part of any theory, but if it was to be a connection, like if we were to come out of it thinking that she's trying to write similar things, I think something else be
I
would be
remember.
better. Yeah,
Yeah.
they talk about rings and tides, and these are not really things that end up having significance in the story prior to this, right? But yeah, okay, okay, okay. So you think that even I don't know if that makes it make more or less sense.
Hmm.
So the start of it was writing about murder mysteries, which by the way isn't what Butler experienced. We need to remember that even though we see the episodes, what actually happened uh, in Butler's perspective is not wasn't like a murder mystery at all. He was he basically didn't even get to see anything. He
You mean
was
when
just
things actually happened on?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
He didn't live out the murder mystery then.
Yeah,
So writing out the murder mystery to make him remember anything, I don't see it
why not?
because it would be only that murder mysteries mean something to the two of them,
Don't they?
but no, they do. That's what when I'm saying it would be through that.
Yeah, because
It,
it
yeah.
was in a way a means of communication from
Okay.
Yasu,
Then
which is no longer Yasu, from Ikuko to the battler before the
yeah,
incident.
yeah,
That's a very big
yeah.
connection, I think.
That's the only way that I would conceive of it.
Yeah,
And
and
by the
that's why
way,
all of the games are murder mysteries, because it has such a fundamental
yes,
importance to the
exactly.
both of them. Mm-hmm.
Um, which if it is the case, then I guess it is in character to be completely roundabout about everything. So I guess that's a point in your favor. Um, there are very big impediments for me to uh,
No,
consider
that's okay.
this
Just to be
theory
sure, I'm not trying
seriously.
to convince you of anything.
No, it's fine. But and I know I'm mostly we started with like logistical things just
Yeah.
because also for me to get a handle of what flavor of it
Mm.
makes sense to you.
Hmm.
But the weird thing about it is, if true, then the character is a very different character. I think because the conception I have of this character is something, is such that this is impossible. Like this would never have happened. Um, of course, uh, then I might just be wrong about what the character is and unwilling to take in new evidence to restructure how I think about that character because I don't think it's the same person, right? But there are some things that are very hard for me to get over. One of them is, like I said, in the boat scene, there is a separation between battlers, but there isn't such for Beatrice. It's not like one of them rises to the surface while the other one drowns
Well, no,
with
because
battle. Right?
Beatrice
This
and
doesn't happen.
everything else has to. I don't know. I don't know if die, but it definitely has to remain in the cat box, right?
How do you mean it?
I mean it that to me it makes sense for Yasu to just completely reinvent her own person fully. It makes no sense for her to take any of the pieces of her own. Um, how do I describe it? All of the personalities and splinters into which um, she was, I guess, switching from one to the other in her life on Rockinjima. Everything related to that had to be left behind. Everything about that in my conception had to be just crash and burn and explode and just not exist anymore. And life had to start from zero for her. Not so much for Battler necessarily. For Battler, it just unfortunately happened that this whole memory thing, which I doubt was part of any sort of plan or desire from Yasu's side.
Would you be more or less convinced of this theory if there was also some person floating out of Beatrice back into the surface alongside Battler?
Um, where in the scene itself,
Yes.
the scene is so metaphorical that I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I would lean whichever way.
Really.
Yeah, I
Because that
think
would change everything for me.
right. Hmm. Yeah,
So
and I
you
don't know.
you're
I
you're
was I've looked at the scene after the stream as well, but even during it, I just constantly questioned which part of this is a parallel to some sort of like the real happening of it. I don't even know what real means in the context of Umineko, but which part of it is metaphorical, which part of it is literal. And even after rewatching it, I can't really untangle them very easily.
yeah.
But I do think it was a fundamental need for Yasu to build a whole new person for herself in order to move forward from here. Because everything else would have become dead weight. So everything else needed to just go on the bottom of the ocean and stay closed in the cat box. And something new should just. It's kind of like it feels like coming to the surface would have been like a rebirth for her, in a sense.
Yes.
Like a full one, completely, 100%.
Except not really because it's she's still plagued by the event and cares about it a lot, so much to write
Well, of
about it.
course, but I meant in terms of what kind of person she would live as from there on. Not necessarily a blank slate of memories as well, to just like never think about the past, and I didn't mean it in that way. She definitely couldn't carry on being Beatrice. Beatrice had to remain there, for example. But I think everything else that was so intimately tied with the events of the island had to be left behind. In terms of that being her past and no longer part of her future.
While still being very much a part of her future.
I don't know. I don't.
Ikuko's whole character is being obsessed about this.
Right. I don't know if obsessed is how I would describe it.
Well, let's talk about this. Um, there's Featherine as well. And my conception of Featherine is that she's somehow an amalgamation of both Hachijo people.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
While also the relation, like the meta relation of what is the more abstract form? Is it Ikuko and Toya, or is it Featherine? That's a question that remains. That is posed by Enja and remains an answer. Like, it's possible that the human versions of them are actually above the witch abstraction, which perhaps itself is above their human fictional selves. But this is a bit Umineko metaphysics.
Yeah, I think I'm following. Yeah, yeah.
And there's some pieces of evidence to suggest that it's an amalgamation of both. But Featherine cares a lot about gutting this story and figuring out what happened and being the driver of exposing it to the world. And Ikuko herself does this too. Specifically in episode 8, she's the one that sets up the whole conference and wants to expose the truth. Maybe it's unclear exactly what happens in her mind about this, or how real this is. But how does this fit into your conception of this character?
I did think about it, but not in such clear, concrete terms to put instantly an argument together. I think that might be a moment, but I don't know. It might just be me completely going on a being off base. But I think that might be a moment when she wants to make it a bigger topic than just the games between her and Battler. In order to, because like how there's this, how do I put it? There's this exploration of the past that happens from Battler's perspective, right? All of these games for Battler to regain his memory. There's an exploration of the past that happens from Enja's perspective, because Enja is also like held back by all of these events. And at some point they have to touch somehow, right? So to me, I see that part as her kind of reaching out in terms of it also being seen by Enja somehow, or because eventually it does play out that way because Enja tries to contact them, right? And it is Toya who rejects it. But yeah, this is the only avenue of thought that I have about that.
Um, yeah, basically, Ikuko's actions that we see
Mm.
across the, uh, you know, ultimately little time that we see the character. I don't think are congruent with the idea of putting this behind her.
Mm.
I see someone that is not related, invested in it just out of curiosity and interest, like everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
but with privileged access because of the circumstances of having an actual person from the
Right.
family that was there in their in their home.
But see, here's where things actually don't make that much sense to me. Because if the privilege is having Battler, who can't really piece his memories together, how is that that much of an advantage?
Um, One thing they say is that, or I don't know when I'm mixing manga and Vienna
It's
actually
okay.
on this point. Um, but I think in the Vienna they do mention that. Oh, they definitely mention that um, the forgeries that this author makes, because there's other people doing them,
Yep.
but these ones are uh, more popular, or people like them more because of the accuracy that they have.
Yep.
And I think that has to do with people and layout and things like that. Things that Bettler
Mm-hmm.
could have a sense of
I think it is said that
subconsciously.
she reached the truth of the incident. That's why they're so, I don't know,
It's
realistic.
actually it's confusing because the story kind of says both things
Hmm.
at the same time. It does make mentions of that you just said, but then what we see play out is that Featherine sets up, or has Berncastel set up episode 7 to verify her answers,
Mm-hmm.
which seems to not make much sense.
All right, fair point.
But it doesn't make much sense in either concept. The way that the meta relates to what's actually going on in terms of writing the forgeries is quite confusing. So, for instance, we have this idea of people taking over the game board in episode 5,
Mm-hmm.
like external parties taking over and stealing this game and making it their own, and it's a different one because of different people writing it, but it's not actually different people writing it, like in reality.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it, or rather, it's not from starting with episode 3. So episode 3 and 4 are forgeries, but they're still
Mm-hmm.
presented as genuine Betorici games, but they're not genuine message bottle stories.
All
So
right.
there's a lot of weird things here. But I will say that if it is to make sense, like if we are to map onto these two things, then I think it actually goes against the theory a little bit because it's Ikuko that is more present in the newer forgeries, I would say, and those are the ones that feel more different. Like those are the ones that uh, are not considered Beatrice games. Do you follow?
Mm-hmm. I see.
What do you think about that?
Hmm. Why does this disprove it though? Because I just I see what you're trying to say, but at the same time, some internet random wrote five without love. Didn't finish. Um, at the same time, the perspective of the characters from which these games are done, um, or like the characters themselves, they don't necessarily represent, or they're not necessarily coming from a different external entity. Like Burn and Lambda and Erika, I guess, by trans, I don't know, because she's a spawn of Burn stuff. They were already present in Beatrice board games, right? So it's not that, like, they're completely disconnected. It's just exploring. Wait, but Battler wrote six to show that he got it, something like that. Yeah. I guess for me it makes sense that the game master for those boards had to change in order to be able to show certain things that couldn't have been shown from Beatrice being the game master. But that doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily reject the fact that it could have still been Yasu concocting it all along. That makes sense.
I mean, I suppose no. Although in five, it's they say that oh, even though this is technically something that this piece can do, Beatrice would never have this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like she would never have done it like this.
Yeah. So I guess that's why. Hey, thank you for the beaties. So I guess that's why it had to be handled by a different character, because the character of Beatrice wouldn't have fit to show those
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
but then we can't really on map it onto the reality that we're thinking that it's the same person writing all of
Why
these
not?
because we're saying that it's a different person unless it's someone that changed the way that they write for five specifically to showcase something else, which is possible. But then in that case, when they wrote three and four, they were still faithful to Beatrice, which is not congruent with the idea that they left that part of themselves behind in the sea.
Hmm.
I think we are sometimes making use of um, sometimes we're connecting these characters uh, very very closely, and sometimes we're separating them very drastically in the same theory of these two are the same depending on
So do you think
what is
that,
necessary.
like, Beatrice is equivalent to Yasu, or is Beatrice a part of Yasu?
They're not equivalent,
Mm.
uh, but I think that Beatrice is a bit of a homonym word. Like it means different things in different contexts, and
That's
I
true.
do think I don't think that, or rather, that's what I'm saying. It's possible that Yasu. Let's consider Yasu as like the core person
Mm-hmm.
of from which other personas sprout out of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm saying it's possible that while forging, although I guess it's not forging, but in the forging of three and four,
Mm-hmm.
she took up the Beatrice persona, and then in the forging of the remaining ones, she took an Ikoko persona. That's
Mm-hmm.
possible. But then, by taking the Beatrice persona, she actually didn't leave the Beatrice persona dead in the sea like we were talking about before.
The way I see that is that she isn't living the Beatrice persona anymore. But that doesn't mean she can't write about it, and especially in reference to the past. Because all of these things are always in reference to Rokkenjima. They're nothing in reference to their current life or anything. It's always in relation to the past, where this is very much relevant, right? And if the goal is to get Battler to remember, then this Beatrice persona has to be I guess has to be present at least in the stories. Not necessarily. I don't equate that Beatrice existing in the stories that Ikuko writes as Beatrice still existing within Ikuko as a persona that she embodies in life. That makes sense.
I understand the words.
You understand the words?
I don't know if I can really conceptualize this. Just that then I don't think I really have a good conception of what it means to leave the Beatrice persona behind. If it's still fair game to write as this person, which is what the Beatrice persona was doing primarily.
Well, what was the Beatrice persona doing for Yasu while on the island? Yasu was acting as it in certain moments, right? Actively.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't think Ikuko does that anymore.
Actively, like, how do you mean actively?
Weren't there moments when Yasu was embodying Beatrice in front of Maria, for example?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. And you're saying that's what it means.
Yeah. But also it was at least in my perception a constant presence in Yasu's mind in terms of filtering happenings of daily life, kind of like a reflection of Yasu's emotions and like a constant back and forth of what does this mean. Sometimes it was like a negative force, sometimes it was more of a positive force and stuff like that. So all of these things that Yasu was using Beatrice for in terms of shaping her inner world and the view of on the outside world, I think those no longer exist in the life after Rokkenjima. Even though the character of Beatrice, let's say, lives, I guess, in the forgeries. But it's always a remnant of the past that is meant strictly to have these games with Battler, but not necessarily still a living part of Ikuko in the present life. I don't know if I'm expressing myself correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I said, this is just my own take on it. I didn't want to look into the manga so far precisely because I want to work with this on the memory of the VN.
Yeah.
Although we did read a few chapters together, so I can't really take that away. But I'm trying to not let that get muddled with the memory of the VN. And I don't know, I think things are so vague that you have enough grounds to build interpretations like this and not have them be completely bogus or, you know, completely off base. And at the same time, they don't you have to suspend your disbelief for certain things as well. But that is also a thing that you do generally in the novel and also with Battler's Condition and other things.
Yeah, of course.
So for both sides, this works. I mean, the more pragmatic view of things is yours, right? because
I
it is
call
a
it as I read it.
yeah, because and I can see that, right? Because it's a bit of wishful thinking as well that this is the case. That Yasu is Ikuko, but I will take it. I will take my wishful thinking.
To be fair, uh, I prefer the story in which this isn't the case. So it's
Hmm.
not like I'm uh, emotionally neutral to this question.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Uh, I don't know if it's nice to say that I'm wishfully thinking that she did die in the sea there. That's not quite how I mean it, but it is what I'm saying. Um, for for several reasons.
Mm.
But yeah, uh, I do think that what I think is you can definitely read it and take it as face value uh, prior to an emotional investment in how you want it to be, but it's difficult for me to conceive of someone having this idea before wanting it to be true, which
Mm.
is which doesn't matter to the question of whether it is true or not. Although I will say, if it is true, I think we would have seen more of it, especially in later material like the manga. And some people argue that we did, but I think I think we've reached the point where it
Mm.
doesn't matter what is presented, it can be interpreted in that way.
Hmm.
Like there is an explanation in the manga as to why the forgeries are so congruent with the original story.
Okay.
That is um, hard to believe, and it seems a bit weird that it's like this. So people take it metaphorically, like, oh, it's not really like that. It's actually,
Oh,
metaphorically
I see. Okay.
saying that Ikuko is actually Yasu and whatever.
Hmm.
Maybe I think it's totally possible that it is just that contrived, exactly as I'm reading it.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't be a
And I think
first.
definitely. And I think a reason why is um I don't think it warrants being hidden hidden so well. If true, why is it such a well kept secret when
Mm.
so many other things aren't? But you know,
I like that. We can resurrect her by ourselves. Fair point.
yes,
Yeah.
it only fits it well if I think it's a bit of a circular thought if you say it fits well or doesn't fit well. Because if it doesn't fit well, it's because the character that you have in mind wouldn't do that. But if it does fit well, they would do that. But it's all about your conception of the character, which is dependent on whether you think it happened or not.
Mm.
I think.
Mm.
So I think it doesn't fit well at all, right? But that's because I don't think it's true.
That's all right. That's absolutely fair. I think it's perfectly fine for both of these to exist and for fans to kind of find themselves more on one side than the other. I think it's wonderful that we still have at least a few crumbs that could point into this direction if you want to. You know, you have like some ingredients there to perform the resurrection spell if you want to, if you care
Yeah.
for it. Um, and especially after so much, like, this whole journey is such a big time and emotional investment that if your heart is just happier landing on one or the other side, you should just have it. Anyone should just have it. Like, whatever, you know, whatever side you find yourself better in, that like gives you a sense of satisfaction for things being that way, I think any reader should just take it and it's fine without any sort of judgment in either direction.
Yeah. While I agree with you, I'll go a
Hmm.
bit further with my assertion that
Yeah, go.
um, there are things in the story that are questions and remain so, even if you can say you can take different parts of it as clues to the answer that you prefer. So there are things that are kept as questions intentionally and by design, and people position themselves however they want about it.
Mm.
For this one, I think that it wasn't meant to be a question.
Hmm.
So that's my idea of it. I don't even think this was meant to be a consideration.
Yep, that's all right, but people will have it.
Yeah, of course, of course. I'm not
The story
the
will
measure. I mean,
always,
I
yeah.
can be wrong.
Yeah. When you put the story in the hands of the public, especially when you leave certain doors here and there open for these kinds of interpretations, it will transcend whatever intentions the author had, and people will believe what they want. And I think this also fits nicely with some commentary that we had when, I guess, when Federine came into the picture. We were, or it kind of brought up this topic of how much control does the author have on how the audience perceives their work.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of it that is out of the author's control. People would just do
Uh,
that.
no, this is descriptively what it happens. Of course. To be clear, when I'm talking about what is true, I what I mean by that is the author's intent.
Yeah,
To which
yeah,
extent the author's intent matters is up to your
yeah, exactly.
uh, perception.
Yeah.
To me, it matters because I don't really find value in superseding that. But that's me
Hmm.
personally.
I don't know. I sometimes listen to songs, and even though they were written with a very specific idea in mind that resonated in a certain way for the author, and maybe even references certain things in their life, I take the metaphorical aspect of it and can apply it to other things in my life that the author probably never really intended. But I do that, and I feel even an even bigger emotional connection with it. So I think this is just generally something that will always happen with art. It will resonate in
Yes.
different ways for people, in ways that the author never really intended, but is just as real for them as the initial intent of the author was for the author. And I think that's beautiful, and I don't see why there should be an argument against that. So
No, there isn't any
there
argument
isn't. Yeah.
against someone else doing it. I don't do it
Mm-hmm.
because of how I prefer to interact with these things,
Mm-hmm.
not to make it normative at all. Um, but about generally speaking about this author, regardless of whether this is true or not or whatever, I will say that I think this is happening especially in the discussions about Kikonya. I think there is a huge uh, overstatement of how puzzly and how much work his stories actually require to crack.
Mm-hmm.
If you go back to Umineko or Higurashi or anything, and you just do this exercise of trying to read everything and interpreting it literally, you'll actually come out with a very good understanding of what's going on, even though it's all metaphorical. Like in Umineko, taking things at face value
Mm-hmm.
is very useful to actually figure out what's going on, even though it's like lies upon lies, because it's not really.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think there's a huge overstatement of the way that he writes. I don't think he's particularly subtle. I don't think he's particularly secretive about a lot of things. So
Right.
whenever I see some theory that requires a lot of work and and things that I perceive as doing a stretch between two concepts or bringing in external material, like people are bringing Bible books into these discussions. I don't think that this is
Okay.
really necessary.
Mm.
I think all these stories end up being actually quite simple at the end, but you know,
I do agree with that statement by Bea. Yeah.
um, this is one of his lessons in this story. He wrote more things by the way. The Umineko isn't like a philosophical essay
No, I
by
don't think it
him
is. But it gives you
on
the
this
chance to
topic.
philosophize if you want to.
Yeah. Or what I mean is, to the extent that this showcases part of his philosophy, it's not the entirety of it. Like he wrote other stuff, and some of that stuff can question supposed lessons in Umineko. But even Umineko does that. Uh, Interestingly, some of the frustration that some people had after episode 8 was that Ryukishi wasn't um, falling on a conclusion in some of the
Ah.
philosophical questions that he was posing, and he was propping up two opposing sides very strongly and then failing to resolve that. And they didn't like it.
Hmm.
I don't mind it because I don't think you need to push forward anything. I mean, maybe it's showcasing his own doubts about the issue, right? And that's totally fine. But yeah, that like there's different philosophies in the story, and even though some of them are like villainous at times, at the end of the day, there is value in them.
Value in them in the sense of um, using it as an opportunity to think about it and see where you land on that topic, because I feel like you said, he doesn't necessarily impose his own view if he even has a black and white one. Maybe there's a lot of nuances of gray in the middle of everything. Okay. um I guess the whole thing with like trick magic and trick is one way in which he is saying something, because obviously you're meant to choose one. That's the whole reason for the journey that you've been
Yeah.
through. But there's a lot of others where he leaves it open, I think. And I think that's a good
Yes.
thing, because I don't think anyone wants to read this novel and be preached at,
Yeah. Of course.
especially since things are so complex. um, Certain topics are very heavy and they may hit home very strongly for certain people, and then to have um, the story also kind of try to push a certain view of it onto you, that would be a little bit too much. Understand what I mean? So it does nudge in a certain direction more generally, but a lot of the underlying themes are just explored. They're just shown, and you can draw your own conclusions from it. That's how I feel about it, and I feel that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just mean that there's a difference between the values of Umineko and the values of Ryukishi.
Ah, I see.
Because he has works that are different.
Right. I see. Right. We
Okay.
we diverged a bit from the whole
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
theory. If you want
Okay.
to add
So
things about it, go ahead.
no, circling back. So I need to ask how the things that you pointed out initially are resolved. Particularly,
Mm.
I need a lot of help in
God.
conceiving the possibility that two people are drowning, right?
Okay, yeah.
One of them,
We're getting to the
uh,
technicalities of it. That yeah.
yes, yes. One of them is being pulled down by the power of gravity
Mm-hmm.
because, or in a very strong way because of the solid gold that they have, right?
Yep.
I have issues with the idea that this person is the one that comes out the the best out of the situation or comes out of it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally understand.
But and I don't like the explanation it being the scene is not real because this is just a matter of
Well,
if it goes against it, it's not real.
so there is this point mentioned that the boat capsized or something happened, Battler fell into the water. So there is some falling into the water that happens for sure at some point or another.
It has to for Battler
Yes.
unless the idea is that he came to shore and then was hit by a car, but he wouldn't have, I guess, if they had both come in together. So
Yeah. So I guess this gets a little bit too close to the technicalities of explaining exactly what could have happened. First of all, to get Battler injured to this point, I don't know. Does lack of oxygen for an extended amount of time, could that be the reason why he got hurt in this way?
I think that's the idea, even though it wouldn't really work like this medically, probably.
Yeah, well, forget about that. We suspend our disbelief there.
Yes, oxygen deprivation does brain things.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. My only gripe with this and why I would feel more comfortable having it the other way is that if someone suffered oxygen deprivation to the point where he would get so much brain damage from it,
Yeah.
I don't see how they themselves alone could have ended up safely on the shore. I feel like it would be more easily explained, but there being two people trying to do that. That's the only thing that I have going for me here.
But
like, I
it
don't know
would
how
be
to explain it
too
in more technical terms why Yasu turned out for the better, even though
right.
they had the gold ingot pulling down. I mean, I don't know.
Because
It's George.
it would theoretically be two oxygen deprived people.
Yeah, but we don't know Yasu's swimming skills versus Battler's swimming skills. We don't know how well
True. True, I
each of them can
suppose.
hold their breath. Because there are people who can hold their breath for like forever and they're fine.
Yes, true.
Put me in the water for 30 seconds, I'm gonna be like, I'm not even gonna last 10. Okay?
Oh,
So,
maybe the aquarium scene is a hint that Yasu is actually a fish.
right? So there are all of these things that, like I said, I cannot explain it to you concretely. At least the way I'm coming at it, at the situation. I'm coming at it more
Okay,
from a heart perspective, from like
that's fine.
what I would feel like would be more satisfying for me to be the case, and from more of a, like a poetic kind of
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
angle,
yeah.
right?
And to be clear, I am as well for my own.
Mm.
I don't actually need the logistics to make that much sense
Yeah.
because it's Umineko. Okay. It's the story in which people don't get wet. Do you do you know what I mean?
Yes, because they're always outside in the rain, and
Yes.
like everything is fine. Weapons
Yes,
work
yes.
even though they're
Yes,
soaked. Everything,
exactly.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And guns are used a lot and there's no gunshot except for that one time where it mattered in episode
Mm-hmm.
1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. That's totally fine
Yeah,
because it's
yeah,
fiction.
yeah.
Like in universe fiction. Anyway, but I don't need the logistics to make sense, but I will say that it makes more sense to me that the person with the heavy metal attached to them drowned
That's
and
fair.
died, and the person without it did not. Makes
That's
sense to
fair.
me. Okay. Then what about the car? The car is actually what makes least sense to me in my
Mm.
conception of this theory. So they wash up together, and then how do we go from there to the car? Because he saw a car. There were car lights, and it was on the ground, right?
Yeah, I just don't think that
Okay.
is immediately after the boat scene, after they
Right.
come ashore.
So
I think it's in a
when
different moment.
when would that be?
When exactly? I don't know how to put it on a timeline,
Or
but just definitely later than that. Like,
what are the circumstances? Like, why is he on the
mm,
road and she's on the
um,
car?
mm-hmm. Yeah, the only way that I like, 'cause, like I read that scene so many times. It's not so much of a logical connection. It's just what I felt in the moment when I read the discussion when meeting with Enje after all of those decades, describing how he had a fit. It's not said exactly what that fit meant, what he did
Uh-huh.
to injure himself. But that is an indication to me that when things get overwhelming, he gets into this mode of maybe putting himself in harm's way. So I don't know. In that moment, I just had like a click in my head of like, oh, maybe that scene is actually something like this. It doesn't have to be the exact one where he got injured that he couldn't walk anymore. I think not necessarily. But it could just be a moment like that. And then Ikuko went and picked him up. And I guess it also resonates with me. Maybe I should give a bit more context into context means also spoilers into the plot of the other visual novel that I very strongly associate this with, and which is why my brain even went for this. So in that story, sorry, spoilers for Tomoyo after if anyone is interested.
Hello.
Hey Clinton,
Well,
What are you guys plotting?
we're talking Umineko.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to listen.
Well, I could, but I wouldn't understand anything.
Sorry about that.
It's never
what do you think about I equals Y?
I equals Y.
Yeah.
Poor
I
Clinton.
equals Y. I'm you.
True.
Did I score highly on
Yeah.
your test?
Yes.
Yay! I'm sure I didn't, but what is it actually?
It's a false thing that some people think.
A false
Uh,
thing.
a
Okay,
false.
I see. I see, Bancho.
It's gonna
it's
remain a secret, isn't it?
it's a theory about the ending of Umineko, and some people believe one thing,
Oh.
and others believe it's not true.
I
But the ending is vague enough that you can believe whichever side. And we're debating it a little bit.
who's I and who's you?
Ah, who are they indeed?
That is the question.
It's
I see.
complicated. Short answer.
It's okay. Sorry for just bursting in here.
Yeah, no worries. That's cool.
I just thought usually you have a stream going when people join here.
It is, but it's going on Twitch.
We are
So-
live on Twitch.
So say hi.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Hello.
Who am I? Yeah, good question, Watson.
How,
Yeah.
where? But there wasn't the announcement for it.
There wasn't? There should
Well,
have
I
been.
didn't see it.
Maybe my bot died.
Oh yeah, there's no.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh no.
Oh no, I have to check the bot then. I haven't changed anything. But yeah.
By the way, ironically, and I'm probably wrong, but it is true that I started talking about this theory by this like code name, like independently from other people doing it. So from my perspective, I actually coined I equals
Oh,
Y.
Bancho.
It's probably not true, but when I
Bancho
started
the
doing
chat.
it was
Mm.
actually because we were in a chat where some people hadn't finished it, and so we were trying to talk about it in code, and that's what we came up with. So
I
there's a
see.
very slim chance that I actually coined the the most used name for the theory that I least agree with.
Great minds can think the same thing independently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's probably what happened. I mean, it's not like it's a difficult set
Mm.
of characters to reach. But I don't know. It's because it's specifically I equals Y and not Y equals I don't know. But it is
Oh,
funny.
okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Making me curious, I'm gonna write in Google I equals Y
I'm curious
and
if
see
anything even pops up,
without context.
unless you type Umineko.
Okay, without context, I don't think it
Mm.
knows. Maybe ChatGPT would.
Yeah. Right. So, where was I? I wanted to give a bit of a, I guess, some short summary of what Tomoyo After is
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is why I jumped to this. And I guess me going through that experience made this make sense for me. This is also a case of memory loss for the main character, and it's
Right.
again a case of suspending your disbelief as to what kind of condition this actually is. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just take it, right? But basically, he has an accident, hurts his head, then struggles to remember things, and we see things from his perspective, which is first and foremost. I mean, we all see the whole novel through his perspective, but because of this accident and like memory loss, starts being an unreliable perspective in terms of the timeline of things, right? But he wakes up in the hospital, and his partner Tomoyo takes care of him and so on, and starts to help him regain his memories and remember about his past and the people that he cared about and so on. And this is like a big chunk of the story until it's revealed that his conviction makes him go into these like loops where his memory, like he starts remembering things, and then his condition gets so much worse, headaches and all that jazz, to the point where he forgets everything all over again, and then they have to start again from zero. So when he wakes up and his partner is trying to help him, that wasn't the first time that he woke up without memories. There had been several loops before, and she ends up in this mode of sorry, I heard something. Right. So she ends up in this. Why do I hear myself? Right. She decides to just pretend that it's the first time that he wakes up and struggles with his memories. But several loops of that have
Gotcha.
happened before.
There's a movie like this that is incredibly sad and emotional.
Mm.
Uh, I don't remember the name, but it's like an old couple, and the man is reading or telling a story to the woman, and it's actually the story of their love life. And then at the end, she remembers, but then I think immediately forgets because she has some neurodegenerative the disease. And I guess the implication is that this has been going for some
Mm-hmm.
time. Like he goes there periodically to do this, and yeah,
Are we talking about the Notebook, or is this something else?
maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, the Notebook. I'm also thinking about 50 First Dates, which is a more of a comedy thing. But again, everyone is pretending around the character that has lost memory that, things are a certain day in the past, even though times has progressed, but the person
Yeah.
is repeating the same loop. So it immediately took me to that kind of memory loop. And if Battler, or I don't know, I guess I should call him Toya because that fits better, was
Sure.
struggling with these things, it would make sense for Ikuko to make the decision, okay, if it's this bad and it even puts him in harm's way in this way, maybe it's better to take it as a slower approach and, try to ease it in much more slowly over time and kind of start from null, let's say.
I understand.
So that's where my mind went.
I understand and disagree.
That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Probably this is it for this topic.
Yeah.
I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. We can
Uh,
leave it. We've been talking about it for like a while already, so we can move on to other things.
Let me tell you the theory of why Gode is actually the true culprit.
Okay.
Let's see.
We were talking, we were kind of touching upon it a bit earlier about people having their own interpretations and Jukishi being a little bit loose with the conclusion of the themes that he explores, right? In the terms of
Sometimes,
like
yeah.
not necessarily giving or imposing a conclusion, just exposing certain things and like letting you roll with it in whichever way feels better for you. I think this ties in a little bit with the sentiment of that review. Did you see it in the channel that Bear posted the other day? Of someone who, a negative review of Umineko, of someone who didn't really like the way magic was being, let's say, proposed. Did you see it?
Maybe.
If you didn't, then
Is
I
it?
mean, yeah.
Which one is it? Can you summarize it?
Um,
I see. No, I did not read that.
right. It's just someone who didn't really like the take on magic. When I read that, I just like my feeling was that this is fair for the person if this is how they felt it to not like it. Like I said, it is everyone's freedom to land on whichever side they want of these themes and topics that the novel brings up, especially because they tack on it mostly related to Maria's story, right? Because Maria was like truly enduring some crazy levels of abuse with her mother, and she finds this, I guess it could be called escapist
Yes.
route of painting things in all sunshine and rainbows. It could be viewed that way. I personally don't see it that way.
Okay.
But she is shown to take it a bit to an extreme. And I agree with the fact that we do see also the extreme of this. And I don't think that is shown as an argument for magic being good in that way.
Right.
At least I don't see it that way. So I was curious, based on this, to maybe discuss a little bit on like what does the magic in the novel mean to you?
Right. This is a very common criticism. Interestingly, sometimes I think that people misunderstand a lot of what's going on in the story. Other times they don't, but I think that they don't understand. Like they understand, they read it correctly, but they don't agree because they're doing a little bit more work and they have some preconceived notions about what truth is and the role of it in reality is. Um, I will say that Maria engaging in escapism, I think it's hard to me to not think that that's exactly what's going on. It doesn't mean that escapism is bad. It doesn't even mean that it's bad for her to do that in the context that she is in.
Yeah.
I just think by a matter of definition that is what's happening. Um, but there is this concept of maladaptive behavior, right? Which is something that particularly when you're young, you develop to deal with
To
what's
cope.
going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and it works while you are in that environment in terms of your survival, mental or physical or whatever. But then as you grow into a more socialized life with other people, the mechanisms that you build up are not good anymore.
Yep. Yep.
Um, okay. I'll probably be a bit all over the place about this.
No worries.
There are people that put truth forward as a very important value, which is something that Ryukishi calls immature in Umineko, or not him necessarily, but one of the characters does. Uh, and and that makes sense to me just because there is no such thing as, or right, this is a philosophical position that I'm about to lay out. It's not fact.
Yeah, sure.
But there is a school of philosophy that will say that there is no such thing as truth devoid of faith arrived values. So when you analyze the world around you, you are doing it through a lens that is not objective.
Yep.
Because it can't be, because you are a creature of circumstance.
Yep.
So you can't take things objectively, and even if you would, they would be valueless because value is something that comes from your subjective circumstance. Uh, so I'm skimming the review that we're talking about, and the
I don't
person says
necessarily
that
want to come down on this person and contradict them. Like I said, I just while reading it, I thought it would be a good occasion to just talk a little bit about it. I guess about Maria in particular, if there's a desire for that, but also just about magic in general in terms of what it means to you, to me, to us generally. If anyone wants to join.
yeah. So, for instance, he says that it cannot be your truth that the earth is flat, right? Very common sort of argument speaking to objective truth. Like, there's an empirical objective reality that is scientific, and it's not a matter of subjective opinion. I don't think Umineko disagrees with this.
Yep, I feel the same.
It might disagree with the idea that it's possible for you to attain that certainty when it says that red truth doesn't exist in the real world. It might hint to that, but even if truth exists, it doesn't mean that you have to believe it. And that sounds really bad, but I think that there's a very real space for this concept in our lives. Um, and we see Erica being an example of someone that puts truth at the front of everything, or
Yep.
kind of. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, depending on what role she's playing in the particular episode. But in her story about how her ex was maybe cheating, right?
Yeah.
And how she conceived of that. That was definitely a choice that she made of believing something.
Yeah.
Uh, that is, different from. I'm a bit all over the place about this.
No, it's alright.
Uh, so the Earth is not flat. Uh, I think that the Earth being flat or not doesn't need to matter for a person. I don't think it needs to be important for someone's life, right? I think that's the main point of Umineko in, in on this topic is it doesn't need to matter uh, what it is, right? But I don't think that Umineko would agree with someone on the face of facing the mountain of proof that the Earth
Yeah.
is not flat, that they would very vehemently, but maybe they would, because in episode 8 there is this thing that happens with Angie, um, where she's bombarded with facts about the death of her family, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she powers through them.
Captain. Mm-hmm.
um, but I didn't even interpret it that she's like, no, I don't believe that everyone is dead. It's not really what happens, even though she might say that at some point. Uh, it's more like everyone died, but they can still be alive in some way, and I can have a life. I can have a future, even if everyone died, right? I
Yep.
think it's more like that. So I think it's a little bit of a misunderstanding about religion that Beatrice is mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now we're getting into deep Bancho beliefs. Um,
Go for it.
I think that overall it was a mistake in the development of Christianity to to place everything contingent on an ontological statement of the actual true reality of a being,
Mm-hmm.
because what happened afterwards in modern times is when that was shaken because of a different worldview, because of a materialistic worldview, then the entire system came down. And people are confused, and they are without guidance, and God has died, right? Um, and I think that it's totally possible to, for example, be a Christian and not even have to consider the the ontology of the statements and whether it is a matter of historical fact that, for example, Jesus resurrected. I don't think that should really matter, because we're talking about meta truth. We're essentially talking about fictional truth, which is sometimes more useful as truth than actual mundane materialistic truth. Uh, and so, this is a bit of my conception on this. I don't know if that made any sense, but
I
yeah.
think I think I maybe I'm grasping it. Let me try to say it in my own words. Um, you're saying that someone can build a life being a decent person taking the lessons out of the Bible without necessarily taking the idea that indeed Jesus resurrected as being a factual statement. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, more specifically, without even caring about that question. Like that's
Yeah.
that's not even a Christian question.
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird question to pose because it's coming from a scientific lens.
Mm-hmm.
But see, then in chat, if the story is a lie, the belief does not have the same value, right? That's the sort of philosophy that I think was a mistake to to build. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was a mistake to build everything on things that, in essence, weren't probably historically factual.
Mm-hmm.
There's this whole dogmatic system in the Catholic Church. I don't know about other Christian denominations, that I don't know about other religions, but I do know that other religions are not as don't function the same way. But in the Catholic Church, it's important, for instance, that uh, the idea of the Immaculate Conception is very important because
Mm-hmm.
this is what allows Jesus to not be fruit of the
Same.
lineage that committed sin.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is really necessary. I don't
Yeah.
think we need to make this weird sense of everything. I think we can just take it.
Yeah. I do understand what Clinton is trying to say. That if you're building it on a story and then the story turns out to be a lie, it kind of takes the foundation away from it. But we derive value from stories that are not real all the time. We're just
Yeah.
talking about one right now. Umineko is not real. I hope it hasn't actually happened. But haven't we had the chance to explore certain themes and certain lines of thoughts that made us derive or at least think about um, how that reflects onto our own lives, and to kind of like, at least it's done it for me, it's made me reevaluate and maybe even reinforce my own system of value and my perception of the world. And it's not a real story, right? So you can arrive at let's say you can take yourself through a philosophical journey and arrive in a good point, in a healthy point, in a growth point of your inner system of value and your worldview without having to do that through the lens of a thing that actually happened historically. Right?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say?
But basically, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so to answer your question, because I don't think I've done that. Magic.
Magic.
Magic is different things at different points in the story. Actually, wait. I can learn from Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, but I'm not gonna stay a virgin until marriage or turn the other cheek instead of being petty, unless the consequences are real.
I mean, yeah, that's a fair point. Like I said, this is something that you derive for your own self, right? It's a conclusion that you arrive at by, I mean, leaving certain things, like Clinton very well said, that like your own lens through which you perceive things and the circumstances that you're into, that you find yourself in, is very personal. So it's a journey that we all take for ourselves, but we can still land onto something productive and constructive, even if it's coming through the lens of a story that's not real. That's
Yeah,
all.
not to get too deep into moral philosophy, because my God.
Yeah, no, I don't want to do that either.
But but I will, but I will a little bit. Um, the issue is that people that are not religious specifically
Mhm.
kind of speak both sides of their mouth, sometimes regarding morality. Um, so I totally understand if someone, if you're in a Catholic society and you are told that you should remain a virgin until you marry, you probably don't want to do that, right? So I think it makes sense for you to ask why.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do that?
Mhm.
The fact is that the reason why that anyone can give you, right, that is honest, is because this is how it works here, right? Because this is how we do it.
This is
That
how someone in the past decided that this should be done, and we're
yeah,
upholding it for some reason.
that is where it ends.
Yeah.
But the problem is that's where it ends always, no matter what it is. There is um, there's no objective morality outside of any of these arbitrarily picked ones. It's not more correct or less correct to remain or not remain a virgin. And by the way, this is my
No,
these are my thoughts and my
yeah, I
beliefs.
understand. Yeah.
The most honest is actually because it's written in this book. That is it. Actually,
Yeah.
that's where it starts
Yeah.
and ends. And yeah, it's not satisfying, obviously, but it's not like it's ever satisfying because there's no such thing. We are looking for something that doesn't exist. So we created this whole thing. Oh no, it is because this book is actually the divine one, right? Written by something that's totally above us, right? And it justifies it like that. But if the belief in that is threatened, then it doesn't work anymore. And of course, it would be threatened because by definition, it's like something so ethereal. Yeah. Also, believers always have to dance around the red truths of science with their blue truths. If they buy into the materialistic worldview, which is what's so ironic about these confrontations, is religious people buying into the irreligious um, philosophy and worldview to argue, because essentially they understand that that's the only way to argue something is by taking this sort of materialistic premises of worldviews of how the world works. But I think by engaging in the conversations, they destroy the whole point of it. Okay, I'm too much.
It's all right.
Too deep. We're in too deep.
You can get back to the magic if you feel more comfortable.
What the hell was I saying? Oh yeah, that it takes different shapes in different contexts. Yeah, sometimes magic is the best magic is assuming the best. That's the best magic.
Hmm.
Uh, and you need more magical power, the less likely the best is.
Yep.
We call this copium as well in common parlance, which is fine because actually it's a bit of magic as well if you do it the other way. Not now that I'm thinking about it. I was actually having a conversation about something like this earlier today. But sometimes people act towards you in a certain way, and you infer their motivation and their feelings by the way that they acted, right? Uh, and the conclusion that you reach is very tinted by your state of mind, really, and how, I guess, pessimistic or optimistic you are. Someone could take the exact same action done to them uh, in a completely different way than someone else would because of where they're at mentally at that in that moment. Um, and now that I'm thinking about it, I think both of them are acts of magic, but one of them is nice in the sense that you're assuming the best outcome so you don't feel bad, and the other one is assuming the worst outcome, which I guess is bad because you enter a spiral, right? A lot of people have problems with this where they feel like they're in a spiral of everything is going wrong, but a different person could be in the exact same situation, but just by mindset could actually be totally fine with their lot because
Mm-hmm.
of how they are conceiving of what's going on. Um, yeah. Okay. So there's that kind of magic. Magic is essentially creating. It's essentially fiction, right? Creating a scenario. Another context in which this happens is with Maria's. I'm gonna call it this. I don't know if it's an appropriate term, but it's basically torture porn.
Oh Lord.
Where, for example, in episode 4, we see this, where she's mad at Rosa,
Yeah.
and there's that segment where
Yeah.
she does interesting things to her mother, and it gives her some sort of satisfaction,
Mm-hmm.
while
Catharsis would probably be the
also
better word.
while
Yeah.
sobbing uncontrollably through it. Right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it's cathartic. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a slightly different sort of magic, right? Um, that is a pretty good scene.
Bear feels the catharsis
Uh,
as well.
by the way, if it wasn't caught, uh, if you remember that scene, afterwards, Maria is woken up by the cousins,
Mm-hmm.
or they're saying that she's sleepy and she's denying it, or something like that, right? And she laughs. How would I put this? She like laughs at them, like laugh onomatopoeia by laugh onomatopoeia. She
Mm.
goes. She intervals her laughter like one little laugh per second or something. Because she is doing the same thing that she did to Rosa in her mind right there to whichever cousin she's talking to, probably Battler at
Mm.
the moment. It's like each laugh is one horrible death.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if that made sense, but that's totally what's going on, and I will take no other interpretations.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so that's different, and this is actually the dark magic
Yeah.
that um, is taught to her by a very frustrated Beatrice. Uh, bec- because Beatrice does this also.
Yeah.
Just look at any Umineko episode
Yeah.
and the gore fest that they can be. Uh, yeah. Then what else? What other kind of magic? Then there's the most powerful magic, and I've been waiting to talk about this for a long time.
Oh.
Um, if if it finally might be time. Um, to get into a little bit into the motive or my conception of it. But okay, to put it a bit bluntly, Yasu has a little bit of an issue.
Mm. Which one?
That is, yeah, she has a very small issue. No, one of the problems is that um, she has two romantic relationships at the same time, while also wanting a third one
Right.
to be real, right?
Yeah.
Um, this is a problem because monogamy is assumed, I guess. it's also it's a problem for many reasons, but one of them is monogamy is assumed in this worldview, and because of that, there's the imagery of the duel, right,
Yeah.
in episode
Yep.
6. But that duel ends with, yeah, we did the duel and whoever won, but it actually doesn't matter because in the Golden Land, we'll all be revived and everything works out, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? That means that by the method of blowing everything up and nothing is recognizable, and by spreading stories about it that immortalize these characters
Mm-hmm.
as they are and as separate beings, the reality becomes in everyone's minds that is alive, which in Umineko terms might as well be the truth, right?
Mm.
Um, the reality becomes that Shannon and Canon are individual characters that have their own love interest that is totally valid to exist at the same time as another, because why wouldn't it be?
Mm-hmm.
And everything works out just great, right? This is the most powerful magic that is employed, is erasing every kind of evidence to the contrary and uh, putting forward a certain fiction
Mm-hmm.
and making that be what is real. Of course, with the small caveat that it's possible to piece out the truth within them, but that's core to this whole thing, right? The fail safe that she always does, which is related to what you were talking about with Kinzo, right?
God, that reached Master Chef theory.
That is
Aye.
true. That is the best one. I mean,
Yeah.
that is the elephant in the room is that Gode is actually the
Yeah.
culprit, and
Yeah.
that's
All
what you'll
right.
find in the manga when you finally read it. But
Okay. Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, but yeah, does this make sense to you? So
Yeah, I understand.
basically everything can be true because there's no one to say that it isn't.
Mhm.
They're all dead.
Everyone is
Uh,
revived and everyone's wish is granted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, this is the most powerful magic.
Mm.
Uh, which is a tree fell in the forest kind of thing. Yes, tree or forest got blown up by tons of explosives. And then there's some notebook saying that there was a tree that fell there. And by the way, this is not something uh this happens sometimes. There are some things that a lot of people take as much of historical fact as other things that actually don't have much evidence behind them. It's just a matter of these are the only words that were ever written about a specific person or event. So this is the conception that we have about them, which is what Umineko is all about in the end,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Uh, so yeah, and
In the end, what
I
remains of history is not what actually happened, but what we tell ourselves that it happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
to relate
Yeah,
it back
exactly, Clinton.
to fictional truth is this idea that what people thought was happening at the time, even if it wasn't correct, is even more correct in a certain way that this is it's what they thought was happening, so it's kind of what was happening in a collective subconscious kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the same way as I could give you a list of fake quotes by someone, but these are fake quotes that were made by people that had a good understanding of what the person is like. And
Mm.
through just a list of fake quotes, you could actually get a really good idea of what this person was like, even though they're all fake,
Yep.
because you're getting the perception of everyone else. Like this is someone that would say this, right? It doesn't actually matter if the quote is true or not. Yeah. So, more specifically, this is what the bomb does. The bomb is the ultimate I can rewrite reality device.
Mm.
Shannon is real,
Fortunately.
Canon is real, both relationships are real. Uh, accept marriage with George just fine. Uh, Canon gets over his issues just fine. Uh, what else? The family bands together to fight the evil witch, right?
Mm.
Even though they never see eye to eye, they do in that moment, right? Because Yasu writes in a villain and a scapegoat, right, as herself
Yeah.
for everyone to band against, and that's what the story is in the outside world. So she elevates everyone uh, by killing them all, but or that's the idea. That's the plan. My conception of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think about that? And if anyone in chat disagrees, please.
Mm. I don't necessarily disagree. I think that is more or less the essence of what the Golden Land is meant to be, or is supposed to be in the story. So it is a form of magic, if you want to see it that way. I never had any good feelings related to the Golden Land, and I maintained those throughout.
Well, yeah, because
And I
there's a
still have them.
sinister.
Because it just like I never anything that's like idealistic like that. I'm just like nah, nah. That doesn't. Something is afoot there, and I know like
Yeah.
whenever there were those moments towards the end of the episodes of like that music coming on, signifying that now we're all getting to the Golden Land and everyone will be happy. And oh my God, Battler, why are you against everything? You're like spoiling the fun for everyone.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you don't want that. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm pretty convinced you don't want that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do think it's interesting. Um, um, so following this a little bit, see if you agree or what you think. But this is I've asked you multiple times if you were satisfied with the motive, and that's because and I did say this too, which is I had to do a little bit of work for myself to be, and that's because the circumstances are as presented make a really good case as they had to because of the insane uh, tragedy that befell this person. They
Yeah.
make a really good case for a motive for suicide, but from there, extrapolated into mass murder suicide, including such random people like Goda, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the people that she likes the most, such as George and Jessica and Battler, right? Well, let's say that she liked Battler. It's a bit of a love hate, I guess. Uh, it wasn't so obvious to me that it made sense for it to reach the level that it did. But with this understanding, it does, which is the only the only way to make these people happy is to make it's like to set in stone all of these things, right? There is no way out of the situation. For example, with the love mess, that doesn't end with someone being hurt or felt lied to, because of course they all were in some way, um, unless they all die together. I think it's a little bit of that, like she could make it happen. She could make it real. If none of them is alive to see that it isn't.
I see.
And there's a case to be made that it is real. That kind of there's a case to be made. Like I don't think that Yasu is irrational. Some people have that conception. Some people have the conception that she got so mind destroyed that she went crazy and did something crazy. I don't think that at all. I think that the philosophy is uh, outside the norm. But I think it's rational in that context, and I think that I don't think she was under illusions of what she was doing, right? I think that yeah, I don't think there's irrationality or mental misconception of what's going on or
Yeah,
craziness.
I don't
I
think so
think it's
either.
very plain, rational, like the only way for everyone to be happy in this family is for them to die in a way that absolves them, or rather that uses an evil person, the witch, as a scapegoat for everything, and they can die being heroes and loving each other and having the relationships realized, especially the marriage proposal being accepted, right? That's a very important scene. There's a reason why it's in every episode. And by the way, it is, I think I can say this now, the marriage scene is what they mean, or the marriage proposal is what they mean when they talk about the year being so important, like 86. That's what they're talking
Ah,
about.
okay.
Because it's something that in pseudo quantum uh, musings, such as cat boxes and such,
Okay.
it's something that collapses the wave function, right?
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
An answer has to be given.
I see.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just I guess I didn't perceive it in that way. Um I don't think Sayo Yasu, I don't even know what name to use anymore. I don't think she is irrational. I agree with you on that. I don't think she is what's the word? I don't think she doesn't realize the real implications of the things that she's plotting at the very minimum. I'm pretty sure she's aware. I just think there's a lot of conflict within her. At least that's how I perceived it, coming from various directions. What you described could be one side of her. I also saw a side, or like, I guess, felt like there was space for a side of her that just wanted to eradicate everything because of the whole blood connections and what she is, which is such a weird concoction of incest,
sorry to interrupt, but in the stories, Yasu doesn't exist. Shannon and Canon exist. The incest thing isn't real in the stories because Shannon and Canon are different orphans. From they're unrelated to the family, right? That's what's perpetuated. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Bea, I just now saw. That is also something that I thought about. The last thing that Bea wrote, that while writing this out, I'm pretty sure there was some soul searching going on there. Maybe coming to some conclusions of like how this is, and like how do I put it? Maybe she started from a place of just wanting to eradicate everything and her with it, because she saw everything as like tainted in a way, and everyone who had this blood in their veins I'm pretty sure she at least had moments where she perceived them all as wretched.
Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're also right, because I think her feelings of love and appreciation towards Jessica, George, and Battler were not
Yeah.
necessarily fake, right? So these
What
two
did Jessica ever
directions,
do to deserve any of
yeah,
this?
never, nothing. Jessica's just been a sweetheart. So it's just this constant conflict within her and this pulling in various directions that is going on. And I think the plot is born mostly out of revenge, but it can degenerate along the way to become what you are describing. Um, and yeah, it would be, I guess, the ultimate magic, bringing all of these various facets of Yasu into reality, quote unquote. I'm doing air quotes because it's not really real. Um, that they have a place where they fit, and all of the wretched parts are somehow taken away. Yeah.
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 And to the revenge thing, it's actually interesting because in episode 5, they say she's not doing it this out of revenge very explicitly.
Mm. I
But
just said the plot, I think, was born out of revenge.
yeah, there's definitely an element of that specifically towards Natsuhi.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, there's a little bit of animosity,
Mm-hmm.
understandably. But it's interesting how it's done because, for example, in episode 1, Natsuhi is bullied. She's even more bullied in 5 for sure, but in episode 1, um, she is kept alive as an element of, this is being done specifically to hurt you, right?
Yeah.
Um, but the story that comes out of episode 1, when reading it, is Natsuhi being incredible mother and aunt for these people
Mm-hmm.
and protecting them with all that she has and
Mm-hmm.
fighting against the witch and then dying in an ultimate duel
Yep.
heroically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so even if it's like she lives out the revenge by self-inserting as the villain, but the story that comes out is meant to elevate the protagonist and the heroes and
Mm-hmm.
to vilify herself.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah.
That's why she keeps insisting. I did this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the culprit. It's like, and it is true.
At least to some extent.
In the context of like the stories and stuff,
Yeah.
it is the witch doing all of it.
Mm-hmm.
She was right. Um, and that's the point. Like it's presented as if she's taunting Battler, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you can't even prove that it was like a human, but it's also like, don't um, like let me take all of it, which is, and by the way, uh, um, this matters to me to see it like this, also in how it relates to how I see the boats. Okay, I think that this person um, embodied the scapegoat role
Mm.
and died, like wanted to die and did die symbolically with the gold, right? The source of
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yeah.
And the witch is now dead, and that's like good for everyone. It is important to me because of this conception that she wouldn't actually go back, even though she didn't do anything really, right? She wrote some things and kind of, assuming that episode 70 party is close to reality, presented the adults with the bomb and the money, but that's all really that she really did. So why is she so hell-bent on dying and on being sinful? She says that, I did all these things in different worlds, but these different worlds are, fiction, right?
Oh my gosh, wait, what are these?
We have some goats.
Yeah, we have some spam bots. It's okay. I'm gonna delete that just a sec.
So,
There we go.
just to circle back, I don't want to talk about the I equals Y anymore. I
No,
was
that's all right.
linking it back to how it connects in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I could think that, you know what, when Battler went down with her and tried to save her, she actually changed her mind. I could buy that.
Mm-hmm.
But then it just doesn't gel well with me that the whole persona of Ikuko, house included, was already established before then. That's the one thing that doesn't gel well with me, and because of that, everything falls apart. I just don't see it in the character. Like I could see a mind shift at that moment only.
I don't know. I wasn't believing that Ikuko was born before that necessarily. Did I say anything that suggests that? Because I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe that?
No.
Okay, so you believe that she wasn't planning this whole time.
Planning this, meaning in which terms?
You don't think, for instance, that she had a house in what is it? What's the island?
Whatever
The
island.
island where Ikuko lives in.
I don't know for sure if I believe like the whole house was already drawn. I do believe that maybe there were some plans to have something to fall on outside of the island. Could have been something that was done. But I don't think the whole persona of Ikuko was fleshed out before that. I think it was born from that moment.
Yeah, so it's not important to you, the property logistics, I guess.
Not that much. No, not really.
Okay, that's fine.
Because we know that the whole of being trapped on the island is mostly a mental thing, because of course they were going from the island to the what's it called, the orphanage thing, which wasn't on the island, right? So she has been outside of the island before.
Of course.
Right. Plus, some of the gold was transferred or converted into money.
Yes.
That's not too much of a stretch to think that maybe there was something set aside for that, or maybe some other logistical, more bare bones things were set in place in the eventuality that there is that things go this way of leaving the island. Maybe didn't even do it with Jesse gave you a short version of Umineko. Oh my god.
What is the short version of Umineko?
I tried to do that a couple of times with MQZ and he fell asleep. To be fair, it was right before bedtime, so we were tired.
You need to play the MP3s of the soundtrack.
All right, I see. I
for
guess
the specific things that you're talking about.
All right. Anyway, I'm not against some logistical arrangements being made before this, in the possibility of there being the chance of getting out. Because she does, and like I said, there is a part of Yasu that wants the miracle, right? So I wouldn't see it as far-fetched as I wouldn't see it so far-fetched that part of her maybe made a few, I don't know, preliminary arrangements, but I'm not imagining that the whole thing, like the whole mansion and absolutely everything related to Ikuko was predetermined before things even happened.
Okay.
I don't believe that I agree with you that it's like that defeats the purpose.
It seems weird.
Mm.
I don't really see why. My understanding of what happened after she got the gold is she didn't use it,
Mm-hmm.
like basically at all. Maybe for expenses, maybe, but
Right.
we don't really see. You know how some people say, if I win the lottery, I won't say it, but there will be signs. There are no signs.
Sure. Yeah, no, I can't contest that. Like I said, from a concrete, logical, and logistical point of view, this is held up by very thin, crumbly straws.
Yeah,
I don't know how
that's
to
fine.
explain it,
It doesn't.
fully.
Yeah.
But to be fair,
Never mind.
there are a lot of things in the novel that are also the same.
Which one of them is, by the way, the very important issue of how much time do you have?
We can say a bit more. But before we move on to something else, maybe I can say something about the magic topic as well, so we can leave it behind.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry,
If you're trying to go into a different direction,
I completely fumbled that one. Yeah, please.
no worries. You took it in a direction that I wasn't necessarily. I didn't necessarily have in mind, but it was great. I love listening to it, so it's all good. I wasn't necessarily inquiring about the breakdown of what the magic, the way magic is portrayed in the novel. I was also interested more or less like in your personal, I don't know, takeaways of the magic, which you did sprinkle in. So it made like a big hole of everything. So that's fine.
Speak about yours so I can understand what
right.
What you're trying to
so coming back a little bit to Maria's example, because I think that is when it first really clicked with me, more or less what they're trying to do with the magic, because I was very confused up to that point, like what exactly is the purpose, or what are they trying to do with it? I was very, very, very taken with Maria's magic, particularly the source of it, because I felt like it was coming from this innocent place of child wonder and how they look at the world and how they see beauty in things that jaded adults don't really even pay attention to. I think I felt like that's more or less where it was coming from. And of course, in her case, given the extreme circumstances she was in, it's stretched and taken to an extreme that, of course, the novel shows. And it doesn't, how do I put it? I don't think the novel is trying to sell the idea at any point that it is good to take it to that extreme, the escapist thing that we were talking about. When faced with what was it, the ticket that she found in Rosa's coat, there was a clear indication she had been away and not stuck at work, and plus that wasn't like one instance, it was a pattern that she kept repeating. So obviously still trying to find ways around it, in her perception of her mother, and trying to like constantly give her the benefit of the doubt in spite all of this, is an extreme of it. And I don't think the novel is trying to portray it as something desirable. On the contrary, it's just trying to show that too much of this can lead here, and it's not okay. But actually the idea and the core of it is not something bad to have. Because I think, just like you were saying earlier, that we all have our own lenses through which we portray the world, because through which we perceive the world, because we have them and they're ours and they're very personal. There is some element of us having some sort of influence onto how we see the things in our lives. And there might be situations where things aren't that great, but we can try to focus on the good things around the not so great things, and that can give life a bit more of I don't know, happy vibe, bit more of a positive spin. And I think not having that at all is not something that should be desirable either, right? So one extreme is having too much of it. I don't know if I'm smart. I'm trying to find my words. One extreme is having too much of it. The other extreme is having none of it. Both aren't things that I personally would want to be in. I would want to try to find that place in the middle. Because I just think it's in general like a very good life lesson to try to find your own way of appreciating things around you. Because very often there are things that you can appreciate and that you can be happy about despite certain circumstances. And for Maria, it was all like so innocent. Like she found beauty and joy and magic in like the tiniest things. And I was just I don't know. I was overwhelmed by the fuzziness of like how that made me feel. And I don't think Maria is wrong for seeing things that way. And I don't think she's wrong for trying to love her mother and for giving her grace in spite of everything that she does. I don't think that's wrong. It's just you do have to find a way to balance it and to not go so much in the direction that you're completely naive and are taken for a fool by people or by life. So to me, that was a positive, beautiful message of like trying to look at the world with just a little bit more magic in your eyes. How does that sound?
Yes. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's easy to confuse that with denial.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of people don't.
Yeah, but denial is an
I
extreme of it.
Confuse, like it can actually be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is the reason why a lot of people don't like the message.
Yeah, but
they think it's about like covering your eyes and ears and believing whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that's actually not it.
Right.
I think a lot of it is about, at least that's how I perceived it. Maybe, again, since it's filtered through my own lens, and I'm all about trying to find a balance between things and kind of finding like a middle ground, regardless of like whatever thing we're talking about. I feel like what the novel was trying to do is give you the chance to explore just how flexible and elastic you allow your view of the world to be in terms of accepting that you might see things a certain way and other people see it differently, and they don't necessarily invalidate each other, and people have different experiences, so different circumstances that land them where they are in life and why their lens is, a certain shape, which is different from yours. So obviously you will look at things differently. Of course, there are things that are, let's say, more objective than others. I'm not really sure how to quantify them. But of course, the earth is not flat.
Right.
But you do realize that there was a time when that was the truth, and people who said the opposite.
Yes and no. That one specifically is a bit like some people like to say that, in ancient times people thought it was fine. Not really, actually. They actually had figured it out pretty quick.
Yeah, but there were things like they thought the sun rotated around the earth or stuff like that, right? And exactly. For them, that was the truth. It was accepted by everyone. But that doesn't mean it was the factual truth, or like, I don't even know what to call it because it's so hard. Because we're talking about the flexibility of truth and on the one hand, on the other hand, the rigidity of it, because certain things we have figured out, right? We have figured out that the Earth is not flat and that the Earth is the one that revolves around the sun.
Yeah.
Right? But there was a time when people dared to say this, and they were heretics, I guess, right? And
Yeah.
they were going against things. And I think there's value in still allowing voices to express different perceptions, even to the extent that some people will come and say that things that have already been solved, and we all know the Earth is not flat, right? They will still come and say that it is. They choose to believe
Right.
that, okay. But the thing is, in order to allow dissent to exist and conversations to exist and people to express and to challenge things that are perceived as the truth, we need to also allow these situations, right? It's like you cannot have flexibility without allowing also these things. It's just part of
Yeah,
it.
of
It comes with the territory, right? So the thing is that life is not made only of these kinds of like easily verifiable things that we have already figured out after centuries or maybe millennia of exploration. There are topics even today in science that scientists don't agree on, and I think that's healthy. I think it shouldn't be the case that the scientists come up with something new and they're like, this is science and no one else can contest it, right? So this is important. And also in a more, coming back to more, I don't know, I guess subjective things as people's personal perceptions are, it is important to allow the space for people to not see things the same way you do, right? Because we can all agree that I don't know, something is red, but there will be someone who has some sort of chromatic issue in their eyes who will not perceive that red, right? So the thing is red, but this person can't see it, and we need to accept that, okay, this person can't properly see it the way we do, right? And again, this is a more, I don't know, it's a more concrete thing to grasp on, but when it comes to life philosophies and worldviews and just people's I'm not finding my words right now. Basically what you so very well encapsulated earlier, much earlier in your rant about each one's personal lens being a different shape, and so they're seeing things differently. I think the novel makes a very good case for not being stuck in your own things, right? Because just because you don't struggle with something doesn't mean someone else isn't, and things like that. What's happening? I just remember Jessie's take on Umineko. She hated Genji and Kumasawa for being Kinso's accomplices and enablers. What do you feel about them? That's another can of worms. Yeah, so circling back just to make a final point, this whole conflict between the truth and my truth, I just don't know if a full case can be made only in one direction. Because like I said, there are some things that we kind of have figured out, we kind of know what they are, but there's a whole lot of other things that make up life, and there's like much more of them in terms of volume, that are so subjective, and it's very important to allow different takes on them to exist. So I don't think the novel makes a case that everything is a personal truth.
Right.
To me, it was it's always a question of balance between the two, and recognizing that both exist, and trying to adapt depending on whatever the issue at hand is, or whatever the topic is, trying to adapt in whichever way fits better for you as a person, but also not dismissing other people who might have different experiences from you. Basically, that's it. Yeah.
We can't forget, that the primary presentation of this as a murder mystery exists in that premise of this is materially, like materialistically, scientifically, like a solvable puzzle. So, the idea that witches don't exist, we need to fight for the truth, is a naive idea that gets explored and developed later on, but it is still true that through that you are able to make sense of the earlier episodes. So for sure, the novel doesn't say that there's no such thing as like objective and like materialism and things like that.
Yeah, that's how I took it as well. So it doesn't discard that, it just makes a case for somehow for the two of them to work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read or watched? Maybe I've asked this before, but have you read or watched Attack on Titan?
No.
Okay. It's been
Like
bothering
all
me.
incredibly hyped things, I steered away from it.
Okay. Like Umineko. But I won't go into it specifically then, but in both that and this, it's been bothering me that a lot of people have an issue with getting away from the initial formulation of the philosophy of like a work of fiction. So, for instance, in Umineko, I find that a lot of people take really well to Battler's idea of what's going on, and they need to defeat the
The
witch and
witch.
solve everything.
Yep.
And then they have trouble moving along with the story for what it develops later on.
Mm-hmm.
And they're angry, like, why is Battler a friend of the witches now? Why isn't he denying this? Why is he doing this and that? And in their mind, it's like, oh, this is now worse, even though it was always this from the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they lost the train at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that plays into that flexibility that maybe your initial perception of something, your surface understanding of it is not necessarily the core and the substance of it. And you need to have this capacity to mold your mind around additional things that come along. So it's okay to kind of feel in the beginning that you are against the witch. That's how I also felt.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's kind of like what the story is showing you. Right? In a way, based on your earlier comment, it's kind of like what Yasu would have wanted you to feel.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
To blame her and elevate the others. Right?
And to rile you up, I guess.
Yes. I guess that's why Beatrice's over the topness way of acting and speaking makes even more sense.
Exactly.
Right? And this is something that really irked me in the beginning. It's like, why am I supposed to like like this person who's just coming here, torturing this character that I really like, and just overall being a nuisance and annoying?
Why is my most loyal viewer styling themselves after this character?
I didn't think that. Of course, I always had this sense that, okay, there should be some layer of depth there. But I was also of the mind, like, until I see it and feel something, I can't help but feel how I'm feeling right now, right? So I was genuine about it. And when I didn't like Beatrice, I said, I don't really like Beatrice right now. What can I do? And at the end, I ended up sobbing and crying over her. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a journey, right? And I was open to it from the very beginning. And of course, there it is. It happened. But I needed some substance for that to happen, right? And the novel obviously offered it in the end. So it worked out.
Oh, I was going to say something so clever. And
I've
really
watched some of it. I think maybe they released some extra seasons that I haven't caught up with, but I'm pretty sure I watched the first and maybe the second. Yeah, maybe they released some extra stuff, but I watched it and I loved it. And Jun Fukuyama voices the main male character, and I love him. He's my favorite voice actor. Yeah, just a quick thing, so I don't interrupt your thought later on, so I don't leave this unaddressed. Just briefly regarding the question about Genji and Kumasawa.
Oh yeah.
I think Genji and Kumasawa, they just did what they knew best. Okay, they are also people. They also have, like we said, their own circumstances. I think last time we had the talk, I was mentioning, like, I think Genji also had his own like spiral of stuff in his head that he was struggling with in terms of loyalty towards Kinzo, but trying to help Yasu. But you know, the means that he had at his disposal to do something for Yasu. I think both him and Kumasawa tried to give Yasu the best life that they knew how to give them given the circumstances. I don't necessarily see them in such a negative light, even though likely there were things that they could have done better, or they could have done more, or they just could have I don't know, completely decide to, okay, we cut ties, we take this child and we go raise them somewhere completely different outside of this crazy environment, which they didn't do for their own reasons, I suppose. I don't feel inclined to be judgmental towards them in a negative way. I just see them as just people, humans who also have their own flaws, and maybe sometimes didn't make the best decisions, but they made the best decision that they were able to in those moments. Yeah.
But is your unwillingness to have a negative perception of them specific to them, or it's because everyone that exists is like that?
I have learned to see all of the characters with love, if that's what you're asking. So
right.
This is me seeing them with love, and I can't undo that since I've arrived at this point. But specifically towards Genji and Kumasawa, I think from what I saw, they strived their best, but they also were not, how do I put it? They were simple people. I don't know if they had as much self-awareness or like as much awareness of mental health things as we do. I just think they tried to do the best with what they had at hand and their limited knowledge and stuff. They allowed the second battle to be raised, and
that's the risk.
I don't know if they allowed is the right word, because they couldn't have known that he would go to that extent until it actually happened. I don't know, they foresaw that and they're like, yeah, okay, let's let it happen. I'm just not comfortable going to the point where I point fingers at them and blame them so negatively. And just, I don't know, I'm not there. Sorry.
I mourn the lack of interactions between Genji and that Beatrice, because they mentioned a little bit that they were close.
Yeah, that's
I would
true.
like to have a better understanding of the relationship. I guess we maybe see a little bit of it in the form of Honoe and Beatrice, but I would like to see how that was.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Because it was probably difficult for Genji, or it was difficult for Genji. That's why he regrets everything that he ever did in his life, really.
Yeah. I mean, if they hadn't made this is like just a point of contention that I have with being so upset at characters and stories, because if the characters hadn't done the things they did, and if they hadn't made the mistakes that they made, we wouldn't have the story to talk about today, right? So, oh, Bea, oh, that's so sweet.
So we should. No, go on.
No, I understand why people are upset at this, so I'm not trying to invalidate their takes on this. I'm just saying that I personally am not really landing there in terms of how I feel towards them. I actually feel bad for them as well, given the circumstances that they were in, and I think they just tried to do their best, even though they definitely could have done better. But we also could have lived our lives much better, and we didn't. We made mistakes in the past, and here we are. So from the same
we can.
From the same lens that I give Sayo, Yasu, whatever we want to call her, grace, I give them too. That's all.
It's I think with we can have that all implied or not. It's valuable to say that, but I think on top of that, there's an easier analysis to be made that isn't like holistically is this character bad or good, but more like this particular action, should they have done that or not?
Oh yeah, I see.
Understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that a couple of things that Kinzo did probably weren't the best things to be done. I think that's
Definitely not.
easy to be. That's easy to say, even if we take he is a person that does mistakes. I think even above that we can say we can make statements like this. And regarding Genji and Kumasao, I think it's possible to say, not that necessarily I would, because it's a little bit complicated. To which extent they could do anything else. But Genji's actions are at least worthy of consideration. I mean, he himself, I think at the end, Genji's like, I don't know, just whatever you want. Whatever you want to do, I'll help you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it really breaks my heart to think about that.
Yeah.
Because I did feel that the regret, his regret was genuine. Of not doing better by Yasu.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a single manga panel in which he's taken aback and then is like, yes, I will help you. It's like, okay, that's the most Genji characterization we've ever gotten, and I think that explains everything, yes.
Yeah. Right. You wanted to go into something else before I address the Genji Kumasawa thing.
Oh, this is like super non-issue, but it's fun. Oh, for example, okay.
All right.
This is super minor, and it's not what I was talking about just now. But did you realize that in episode 1, the boiler room has 2 doors, and in episode 3, it does not?
Oh no.
Okay, so this doesn't matter, right? And you can even say, oh, it's, I mean, look, different authors. I think you wouldn't think so, but you could even say, oh no, different authors, different, whatever. But one thing that people discuss to this day, and it actually informs a lot of other things, is why is Angie not in the stories, at least the first 2?
Ah, yeah, okay.
This isn't really important, I don't think, or maybe it is, but
and you're asking for my opinion, or
yeah, like how do you take that? How do you conceive of this? Because it is interesting.
Just a bit of a plot hole in a humongous novel. It's fine. I
It
can
might
live with
just
it.
be, right?
I can live with it.
But it seems like such an obvious one,
Bear has an answer. Plot hole. There we go. Yeah, it makes perfect sense to wonder about it, because supposedly stories were written before the conference even happened.
Yeah.
With Yasu's knowledge of who would be attending, and Enji's ended up not attending at the very last minute. So yeah, it's a genuine question. I don't have an answer to, but I am okay not making a big deal out of it. I can take the novel for what it is, as it is.
Yeah, there are answers. There are theories.
What are those?
One theory is that the accomplice selection actually starts before the conference, and in this case, the selected accomplices were Kitty and Rudolph, and they decided to leave Angie behind. That's a
Oh,
theory.
I see.
I don't subscribe to it. Another theory is, for some reason, Yasu herself somehow poisoned Angie to have a stomach ache or whatever to
Oh,
not come. I I don't know, but I don't
she
know why
teleported herself
even.
around.
No, she used her infinite money, whatever.
Mm.
Anyway, no, I don't subscribe to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that I think more likely is the stories. You know how this isn't very well fleshed out in the end, unfortunately, but there is this concept of the game board and the
Mm-hmm.
game master and the reader, and these are all like different things that come together to form something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's possible that the stories in the bottles, the first two, episode 1 and 2, at least, because those are the ones that are for sure legit. Um, Conceivably, they are not exactly how we read them, because we're reading them filtered through some reader, maybe some character, maybe Angie, who knows,
Mm-hmm.
or Battler.
Yeah.
Um, which makes sense actually if it's Battler, because that's kind of exactly what happens.
Yeah.
But and maybe through that filter, it's like filtering out these details. Like it could be that the stories are written in kind of diary-like way because it's described as a diary, right?
Yeah.
In the future, sometimes they talk about it like it's an account of the 2 days, right? Which isn't really what we read. Like that's a weird way to phrase it, like an account of those 2 days. It's not really what the episodes are.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a significant difference between the episodes we read and what actually exists, like in in
Mm.
universe. And maybe it's such that, I mean, NJ is like pretty inconsequential. So
Yeah,
whether
but like
she's
the
there or
whole
not,
18 people is such a big part of it
true.
that.
She is an agent. She's 6, right? She could do things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You're right, but maybe it's something like that. To Arismot's suggestion that because Angie got sick easily, some of the stories could not include her. If it's something like some of them did and some of them didn't, then I think it's a bit contrived that the ones that didn't are the ones that arrive at shore. But it's Umineko. It's totally possible.
Yeah.
If it's she gets sick easily, so might as well not include her because she'll probably be sick. It's still a bit contrived, but I think that's more agreeable. In the end, yeah, I don't think it makes much sense. Or maybe we're all missing something. Like everyone.
I'm okay. Given that the whole novel is supposed to be an exploration after the fact, through Battler and Enja's perspectives, it's fine. I I can work with it. I think it would have been getting stepping a little bit away from the story itself and this part making sense and just seeing it a bit through the eyes of a reader who would have had to contend with those kinds of stories. I think it's much better that it is the way it is. It's much
Yeah.
better that NJ is introduced the way she is and that she is not part of any sort of thing just to serve the idea that this was planned ahead and just getting sick was unpredictable. It's fine.
Yeah, I just think it would be quite easy to write it in such a way that there was no way that Angie would make it, because for whatever
see.
reason she's staying at Kiria's family's place for whatever reason that can just be written in. This could have happened and it doesn't, so it raises the question, right? But it's fine in
Yeah.
the end, unless again we're missing something crucial to our understanding of this whole thing.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, but the way that they talk about the message bottles, as they call them, is weird, for instance, in episode 4, in the restaurant with the professor,
Mm-hmm.
he says that he's talking about the two original ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, which are episode 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Oh, we don't know which one is true, or if any of them is true." It's like, you know that neither of them is true because neither of them includes Eva surviving. But they don't say this, right? It's a bit weird how they talk about them. But
I see. Mm-hmm.
I'll just hand wave it all.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's okay.
But it's never addressed. Like it's never
Eh.
really addressed.
This man carried such a huge universe on his shoulders for this long of a time, and tried to put things on paper the best way he could. We can let this slide. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it would all have been explained in Land of the Golden Witch. That's my belief. Everything would make sense if you read it. Oh, I remember what I wanted to say. Sorry. About the misunderstanding of the plot and unwillingness to move along with it, to like develop along with it. This is the cause of one of the most infamous theories of Umineko that barely merits mention, but it's the one where Rosa is the culprit.
Okay.
The premises of that is that Ryushi is straight up misleading you with all the answer arcs, and he actually wants you to see through all of the illusions and find the truth and reach it only with the red. And that's the exercise that they engage in. So it's like completely missing the point of the later half and dismissing it as
Okay.
as a smokescreen, right? Which is not Rikushi's personality at all to actually do this. People get weird impressions of what he's like he's hiding the truth so well. Like, this is never how it does. He's not a subtle writer, never was. But
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, but in line with what we were saying earlier, that in order to allow for flexibility, we also allow the craziest things to. We allow people to believe the craziest things is what they want to, and then yeah, they're all free to believe that. And there's again, like we were saying earlier, or I was mostly insisting on this. After you put pen to paper and put it out to the world, you don't really have any control over how people perceive things.
True. I mean,
especially
you
works
can
of art.
speak about
It's
it
just
as he has, and people don't like that he did. Yeah, no, that theory is awesome. But he did, for example, about the manga. He came out and said, "Yeah, no, this is what I meant. Actually, this is what I meant to do." People
but
don't
people
like that he did
can
that,
still
but
take it or leave it.
of course,
you can't
people
control
can always
it.
do whatever they want. It's
Yes.
true. It's descriptively true that the authors die. Yes, it's descriptive. This happens. Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, especially if I understood correctly, there was quite a chunk of time between the novel and the manga.
Yes, there
right. So
yeah.
People who experience the novel, or maybe who to this day experience the novel just by itself, can get attached to certain things, ideas, or theories, and they mean so much to them that they don't want to hear that, oh, that's actually not it. And that's fine. I think that's all right. I think Umineko is like a story that lends itself to it. It's kind of like in line with some of its philosophy and the message that it tries to send, and that's okay. Just whatever makes people happy. If that's what they want to believe, it's all right.
It's a game at the end of the day, right? That's how they say it in Japanese. They call it visual novels games. It's yeah. It's only a game.
It's also really fun to see. Like, it's also fun to hear
mad.
what people come up with, right? Even if it's like
Yeah.
completely off base and doesn't actually fit, or maybe there's things in the novel that explicitly contradict it in such a sea of words, you can like let those few things that actually contradict the slide and like let your mind wander and see where you land, and it's quite fun to hear these things from me, at least.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where did the battle cost Fernando? Why do you want to see me as battler? It would be the worst fit ever. Umineko is a game and we have lost. No, we have gained so much. Including a lot of friends along the way, which is amazing.
Actually, if you beat all of the arcades in the fighting game, you find the true answer.
Oh, really?
On hard mode, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I will never get to it, and that's okay. It's genuinely an answer for the fighting game, yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about?
I think I touched mostly on everything that I had in mind before joining this call.
Anything about the hot topics discussed in the Discord?
Which one in particular?
All of the most controversial ones.
All the most controversial ones. I'm okay not engaging in those.
Too bad.
Play House and Father Morgana and show the Umineko truth. Oh, God. Clinton. It will show the Umineko truth. Okay.
I like the controversial stuff.
You like controversial stuff, yeah. I'm more of basically I already said it. Like I said, people will get attached to certain things, especially if certain parts of characters' experiences ring very true and hit very close to home with some of their own experiences. They will see themselves reflected in that, and I think that's a wonderful thing to have, because it's a connection that only you can form in your own way with the work, the story, or the characters themselves. And I wouldn't want to take that away from anybody in any sort of form. So like we already said that there's no right way to, or forced way to look at things, even though some things might be more true than others, or some things might be more debatable than others, especially in the case of this novel that makes a point about different perspectives coexisting, and about not getting tunnel visioned into like getting to the bottom of the actual real truth, and that there being a lot of meaning and significance around that as well. I don't want to get into things of like, oh, this is not really right, or this is not really what it is. I can only say I perceive things this way, and I can allow other people to perceive them differently, and I'm okay with that. So that's why I don't know what I would say about those topics. That would be, I don't know, of any substance.
I'll DM you something.
You'll DM me something, okay. Yeah. Overall, in brief words, what does Umineko mean to you, Bancho?
I love the meta nature of it, as in it's a work of writing about writing.
Yeah.
It's easy to get. It's easy, love is portrayed romantically and in a familiar sense, familial sense, and there's a bunch of different kinds of love. But at its core, it's a conversation that Rikushi is saying, hey, guys, if you love me, if you trust me, like we can have fun together with this. And
Yeah.
that's my favorite part of it. In the end, is that topic of And I find it really brilliant how he connects writing with like romantic love.
Yeah.
The metaphors that he uses aren't subtle at all, but they're so interesting. I never thought about that before. So that's my main thing.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a thing that was mentioned in that video that Des was shared in the Discord channel. I also listened to it today. It mentioned how the love between Battler and Beatrice is kind of like reminiscent or kind of reflects the connection between reader and writer in the context of, I mean, I don't know if mystery novels in general, but particularly here in this one. I thought that was a good point, and I feel like it's kind of an echo of what you're also saying. So yeah, very cool.
I DM'd you.
You DM'd me. Do I look now or later?
No.
Now. Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
I will. Because you
Okay.
said that it's fine. Okay.
Yes, fine, go for it.
The knock-on letter did not
I still
happen.
have my notes about it.
Okay. The solution
I have
is
notes. I made notes about it. Okay. Yeah, tell me.
The solution is they didn't happen. That's what it is. It's not like there's more to it and what that means, but that's what it is. It didn't happen. That's why everything is like they wouldn't mistake it for it, or they wouldn't blah blah blah, because it didn't happen. There was no sound produced. Why? Because the story of episode 5 is that they were all in cahoots. That's what it is. And that's what that's supposed to mean. Like they saw something fake because, whatever. That's what episode 5 is. They were bullying Natsuhi all together. That's why all the murders are fake. As far as they know, they're actually real, but they think that the murders are fake. That's why the bodies leave the bed, right? Even though everyone inspected the bodies except for Erika, it's because they weren't dead and they knew that they weren't dead. Everyone is in cahoots, which is what is different from the other episodes is that Battler is also in cahoots, and that never happened before. Beatrice would never do that, right? That's the difference. That's what they say about, like, this is a game without love, or something that Beatrice would never do, right? But he's also in cahoots. Their whole thing is to bully Natsuhi and Erika because she showed up as well. And yeah, that's what that episode is about.
Okay. That's very underwhelming.
Yes. I'm sorry because we were trying to convey that, like, if this is dumb, like, you'll feel like, if you figure it out, you'll feel like that it's dumb. Like, we were trying to convey this, right? But yeah, I don't know. It became a whole thing.
Okay. Then I don't really see why it became such a big thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a meme, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't click on it because it was a spoiler.
Yeah, it just straight up didn't happen.
I was very serious about not clicking on spoilers.
Good.
Human hand severed from the body that knocks at the door. Oh my god. Horror. Which one is that? There's another solution. Do you know it, Bancho?
No.
No.
Because whatever it is not the correct one.
Okay.
No, but I'm interested. You should join the voice chat and tell it to us. Consider this peer pressure.
No, it's okay. That doesn't need to happen. Only if Bea is comfortable with that. No pressure on anybody.
I thought that was a bit of a loose end, and I just wanted to like it's just
Okay.
a dumb thing. It's like a,
I mean, I
just a
was
Lambda
aware that
delta
in
dumb
the
thing.
grand scheme of things, the
Obviously,
answer to this
right.
didn't really matter that much.
Yeah, it didn't matter at all.
So that's why I was happy to just let it go.
But if you're ever interested in what the story of each episode is, that's an interesting thing. You can like ask, and we can say our own interpretations of it.
Wait, say that again. If I'm interested in what?
In what like the plot of each episode is, like, you know, from a more like what's actually going on behind the scenes in each one, like what are they the story of? Because they're all separate stories, right?
Yeah.
5 is about all of them being in cahoots against Natsuhi, like it's all about the men from 19 years ago. That's what the plot is.
I see.
Yeah, they all have their own plot.
I see. I don't know about that. I do want to read the manga, so I would want that to be not informed by anything else. If there's any, I don't know, little hints here and there over there. I also have forgotten a lot of the details.
Yeah, of course.
But I think I got the most important parts in terms of the main story, the main messages of the novel. So I'm quite satisfied even without figuring out things in the most minute details, which is probably a heresy.
No, it's not.
To the ears of the people who care about that. And yeah, it's okay. I will take that criticism.
It's really not.
The Red Truce talk about midnight. We know it's midnight because the clock. Yes, I do remember that part. I have looked at that scene so many times. I remembered the midnight clock going off. If someone messed with the clock. Oh, okay. It was something that I was thinking, that if it wasn't actually midnight, but I don't know. Yeah.
I like the idea of someone messing with the clock so that they think that they heard a clock at midnight specifically.
But it's not actually midnight.
For dubious profit.
I see. You can go around it that way. Okay. None of the red applies. Then you're completely up in the ether about what it could have been.
Yeah. One of the things I like in Umineko is the separation between the layers and the situations in which there is no separation. So this type of solution implies a meta motive that someone acting in the game board is doing this so that the blue and red battle in the layer above can exist, which doesn't really make sense. But this does happen in episode 6. This is what happens with the logic error thing. That's exactly what happens. It's like a meta motive for doing that, for escaping and becoming canon and de-becoming anything. Yeah. Which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I see. All right.
Yeah. Listen, we are done with Umineko forever.
Yes, we are. Here it is. The moment has come. We gotta say goodbye forever to this. Well, not fully ever. We can still chat in Discord about it.
You should ban me from the server. Like, I'm done.
What? No. We still want you around.
Oh, okay. I'll stick around then.
Please don't be a stranger. Yeah. No.
Not bad. But
yeah.
But yeah, I guess these chats are kind of done.
It's been a great experience. Thank you for indulging in it.
But they were cool.
Yeah, really fun. Yeah, it's time to say goodnight and goodbye to Umineko forever on stream. Ban every music is fine.
That's true.
When an NPC exhausts all their story and dialogue, they go hollow. Oh. I don't want to go hollow.
Oh yeah, I'm going hollow right now. Yeah.
This is the for Bancho. No.
You finished my quest.
No. The end is but the beginning. It always is. So there's plenty of other things that we can have fun with. We can play more games in the server. We can explore other stories. There's gonna be a new patch of Honkai. I'll stream that too. So I'm sure we'll find things to geek over and bond about. Umineko is one of the most important stories for me, for I still exist here in this world because of the character of Beatrix. Oh, my heart. I was in a situation not equal but similar to hers, questioning my existence, humanity, and gender. And as you said perfectly, the importance of the interpretation that you give the character is a truth that no one can break it. Oh, I'm so happy that you're still with us, and I hope you never get to the point where you feel that way again. We're always here, and we can always, try to make things a little bit, I guess, infuse a little bit of fun and geekiness into your life, no matter where, in what point of it you find yourself. And yeah, we will always be here. Don't feel alone, and please stay and just enjoy what is beautiful out there into this world, because I'm sure it is. There is something there to appreciate, and think of Maria a little bit, as I was saying earlier, through her innocent child eyes, being able to see beauty even in the most dire situations. I think that's an important thing to strive towards. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us and for coming along the journey. And yeah, please keep enjoying Honkai and everything else that we have in common. And yeah, maybe one day we'll do that visual novel that you are so taken with, so we can experience that as well. So you see, there's a lot of things to look forward to. There's a lot of things that it's worth just being here and experiencing. Oh, my heart.
Sometimes you ask me questions like this, like what does Umineko mean for you?
Yeah.
And I don't really. I like it a lot, and I think it's very interesting, but I don't have the same kind of. I don't really relate to any of the characters or anything, and I don't really have the same engagement with it as a lot of other people do. So it's not. I end up not giving a satisfying answer to that sort of question because it's not really my engagement with it.
I don't find it not satisfying. I think we
sure.
get to see a little bit how things are perceived through your lens, and that is satisfying enough. And it seems to me like you come at it from a more intellectual and philosophical standpoint, and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I just feel like I only say I like it. That's what it means. Like I like that. I like it a lot.
All right. Yeah, in terms of that question, I guess I can end with what Umineko means to me. Exactly, we have different experiences. Yeah, I never expected to turn into what it did. I've said this before as well. It was an amazing journey, and I've met so many wonderful people along the way. And I hope I've made some new friends who will stick around. And hint, Bancho. From that point of view, it was something that I never expected to blossom into what it did, and I'm incredibly grateful for it, and for all of you who have been along. And in terms of the story itself, it did so much for me in terms of emotional connection with the characters, and in terms of giving me a lot of opportunities to do a little bit of soul searching, a lot of I guess it made me think of things more actively than I would have, on my own, because certain themes are not necessarily things that I have encountered in life, but in seeing them explored so in depth and to the point that it was even heart-wrenching to see the characters in those situations. And I really feel like I have come out of this as having some sort of life experiences that I actually never really had in real life. So I feel like my own worldview and system of values got a little bit of a shake, and now is a lot crisper, a lot more well gelled together in some sort of way. Before Umineko, I had a lot of maybe abstract ideas without having the opportunity to explore them in the context of a more concrete settings, and Umineko did that for me, and I'm incredibly grateful because I feel like I have grown a lot as a human, and it's been terrific.
And Clinton was here as well.
Sorry?
And Clinton was here as well.
I'm happy to have Clinton around, even though he doesn't know so much about Umineko. But this is great. This is great. Yeah, we've talked about so much already. Ask them in the Discord, and I'll try to type a little bit around them.
Yeah, you need to engage.
I need to, right?
In Umineko. Yeah.
I need to.
It's your server. You must.
I must.
Yeah.
Okay, but then I have a request.
Okay.
We're all nice and kind with each other, and we're not at each other's throats. Because when that happens, I'm out.
Listen, I feel like I am not contributing to that not being the case.
Sorry, say that again? You're not contributing to that?
Yeah, that was a bit of many negatives, but I feel like I'm contributing to what you
You
want.
are, definitely. I'm very grateful.
But it can get a little bit passionate.
Yeah, people are very passionate about it, which is a good thing. But let's accept each other's passion without trying to step on each other's toes. It is a nice exercise, I guess, to apply a little bit what I feel is a lesson that I've taken out of this novel, to be a little bit more flexible in accepting that others don't see things our way.
Definitely.
Yeah. And especially in the context of Umineko, I would really hope that people can do this. There's like the internet is vast, and I can't imagine that there aren't other spaces where people are very they can turn very nasty very quickly. Let's not be one of those places. We can do so much better than that. So yeah.
You should have seen a 2chan and 4chan Umineko threads.
I don't know if I want to see that. Yeah, I saw some of those screenshots. I quickly browsed through them, but it was like a bit too shortly before the stream. And I will have a look tomorrow and see what I can come up with. One issue that I have in terms of engaging with stuff, you are so much faster than me. Like by the time I find maybe the words to express something, the conversation usually just like goes to something else. And I feel like maybe I'm too far behind. It's not worth intervening now, but yeah. I will do my best. I will read all of it and come up with something tomorrow. Butler was Hideyoshi alter ego all along.
Yeah, that's the B equals H theory.
All right, I see.
Which I do subscribe to.
Okay.
Somehow probably has more backing than the other one. No, I'm kidding.
Alrighty. Okay. Time to say goodnight.
You don't have to discuss, but I do want you to. So yeah. It's a request, and I know I'm not the only one, so.
All right.
But it's a mirror request.
It's
just a request.
Okay. Battler's Mystery. I do feel identified with Battler a lot in a lot of ways. He was such a great MC. Yeah, I love him so much. Yeah. Okay. Right, so I guess it's good night time now. Thank you once more for this amazing journey. Thank you for being here for over 3 hours and a half. Oh no, we're just at the 3 hour and a half mark right now. And it's just, it blows my mind that we've been talking about it for so long and we've been experiencing this for over a year and there's still a lot to talk about. So yeah, we can keep trying to explore that in the Discord, and I promise I will attempt to be more active. Just please bear with me because I might be able to read something but not reply immediately, so I will do this whenever I have some free time here and there. Definitely will not happen on stream days because that's where my time is stretched to the maximum, but on the other days I will try to set some time aside to catch up with things. I promise. Battler cosplay next. Oh, it's not gonna be Battler, but it's gonna be close enough, I hope. Oh, right. Time for flowers. Yeah, Thursday. We will keep going with that. All right. Thank you so much for everything. Have a good night. Take care. I love you all. And see you Thursday with flowers.